Snow fell cold on a bitter night. John was gone for the morning light. They blame Karen, but it don't sit right. Too many secrets hid from sight. Oh, the badge runs deep, the law runs thin. They stack the deck, but truth won't bend. The judge looks away, the truth gets drowned. Ain't no justice in Canton Town. Proctor's story shifts and sways. Cameras vanish, records fade. The Alberts toast while the doubts grow strong. The folks still fight, won't be long. Oh, the badge runs deep, the law runs thin. They stack the deck, but truth won't bend. The judge looks away, the truth gets drowned. Ain't no justice in Canton Town. Proctor's story shifts and sways. Cameras vanish, records fade. The Alberts toast while the doubts grow strong. The folks still fight, won't be long. Oh, the badge runs deep, the law runs thin. They stack the deck, but truth won't bend. The judge looks away, the truth gets drowned. Ain't no justice in Canton Town.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to this sad day. It's a Friday. It's Long Friday, as we call it in Denmark, because today is the day that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was crucified for Valhalla's sins.
Again, why's it got to be just me, man? Like, wait, you're a sinner too.
Hey, I'm a recovering Catholic. I was born sinned. Like, I wasn't even like an innocent little baby. They were like, dirty, must be baptized.
No, I'm the Danish People Church. We can't sin. We pay taxes. So,
True.
But
although, is it net or gross? Because that's going to affect your placement in heaven.
I think we pay 0.4% of all income to the church.
That's crazy.
That's still not 10%.
No, we don't pay tithe, 40%. But we can't escape. Well, we can turn in our card, and then we can't get buried. But still, no, it's a sad day.
If you can't get buried, then where do they put you?
In the heathen place.
Oh, okay.
But it's a sad day because
I'm so freaked out by this. Hang on. You mean to tell me that if you don't like pay your taxes to the church, they won't bury your body?
Yeah, because you haven't paid rent. You have to pay for the burial site as well. I own more real estate in graveyards than I do because I am the owner of my parents' burial plots. So
wait, do you have to pay property taxes?
No, I don't pay death property taxes, but I do pay for the church to store them.
Wait, so you have to upkeep...
So it's like a rent, a storage rental?
Will they repossess the burial ground?
I canceled my grandmother's burial spot last year.
What'd they do?
Well, I paid for it for 30. Well, my parents first, and then me. But we had paid for it for 30 years since she passed away. But I'm still. Normally, your estate will bequeath money to run your burial plot for 10 or 20 years. It's so they'll trim the grass and make sure everything's kind of okay, and then it's I can't even remember how much it is a year, but we talked about it, and I called the family and said, I really I can renew it if anyone, but I'm the only one still living in this city, and it's not like people is coming every year to pay respect. And there was a tree on the grave that I took home and put in my garden, so I said we can look at her tree in my garden instead.
So wait, do they like
Sweet.
exhume the body if you don't pay
No,
it?
no, no.
And they
Valhalla,
rebury
let me tell
somebody
you.
else?
I
Wait, do
know
they
you.
just mow around it like to shame you into paying your death taxes?
No, they'll
Sounds like
just
some Amish
they'll
nonsense.
remove the headstone, and then I don't know if maybe it's a different in America because you are allowed all these additives in your food, but in Denmark, bodies decompose, so they're not there after 30 years. Valhalla. I know that you read the Bible and it said on the last day we will all get out of our grave facing east, because that's where the Savior will come get us, so we can go into heaven.
You
And you
forgot that
interpret
we're
it.
going to Idaho, like Rexburg, Idaho, before.
I thought it was somewhere in India, because that's where allegedly Adam and Eve fell. But it's not literally that you get out of your grave on the last day, so you'll have to
Oh,
spend
dang it.
time
Now
down
I'm
there
confused.
just
Dude,
that
I've been
JC
prepping all
guy.
this
He's
time to
late.
learn how to dig up.
I know, I've been
because
practicing my Kill Bill thing. I
Right?
can almost get one of those really thick, demonstrative poster boards. So I'm training.
they removed
I'm
the
very
headstone,
freaked out now.
but
Okay,
like,
so
what
you
about the
guys don't
casket? The
have
casket
special
will
order
also.
headstones? Like you don't order it, have the name done, maybe
Yeah,
have a
sure.
picture on?
They will use it as landfill or whatever. Sometimes we have these stories where they don't knock the stone to pieces first, and then people come and say, "Hey, I found a gravestone." If they like build a dike or something to keep water out, they'll just chuck that. It's waste stone. Come on now.
It's
The
like
body isn't in the stone. We don't inject
Well,
it in. It's
it's
just a memorial.
it still seems wrong.
JFK Airport doesn't have parts of JFK in it, so it's okay. It's just a
you're
name.
talking to a Catholic. Do you know what we do with our saints? We chop them up and put them in altars all around the world. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to say
that
facts, not an evidence.
I don't
there are
like
more splits
this.
of Jesus' cross than the forest in Amazon. But
True.
what about the casket, Jemima? Okay. Let's do biology on a budget with Baker. When something gets stuck in the ground,
Uh-huh.
there will be beetles, there will be worms, there will be
Uh-huh.
all the little cribbly crabbly things. They will eat and decompose matter. This is how you renew your garden, compost and all of that. That's worms who and then pooped out some stuff. That's compost.
I'm gonna need us to clip the yum, 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 yum.
And they'll do the same with the body and the casket. So it's not there. They'll find a femur or something when they dig up the grave. They'll just chuck it
Because
in
we
the
have to
grave
put a
again.
new one in, Val. You can't
Well, I
rent
don't like
that
this.
forever. That's
No, but
I don't like
my
this
my
at
dad
all.
my dad used to be the head of the board of all the church graveyards in my city, and he was out sometimes when they exhumed it, and yeah, they'll find a femur or like a jaw. They'll just chuck it in the grave again and then put the new one on it. It'll be the same again. It's not like in a certain other religion where
It's a people
everything you're buried with is
role.
what you go to heaven with. That's why you have to keep if you get an arm chopped off, you'll have to keep it so you can get it with you into heaven.
So there's a good possibility that when Baker finally passes and gets buried, he'll also be buried with neighbor Jim's femur and aunt.
No, because I'll go to the family plot. So I'll be
Oh.
rotting with my parents. It's all you do it as well. And someone said you can't build on church ground for 100 years. You can't do that either. We have a church in the middle of our city, our Lady's Church, from back when we were Catholic.
Oh,
and they wanted to build some stupid project, and the city wanted to spend too much money, and you couldn't do that because it's ancient burial ground and it's hollow ground, so you can't build there. And
what
that's
about pet
probably
cemeteries? Where do you guys
700 years old.
gonna need to ask a lot of questions before I go to Denmark?
Jemima, I hate to break this, but Harry Potter is fiction. It's like Plevin's book. It's a made-up story. Any resemblance,
Oh my God.
resemblance of real life is just made up.
Harry Potter and the Canton Triangle.
Even he couldn't abracadabra his way out of it.
He's like unscrewitis,
Yeah, and it'll just be
unfubar.
it'll be like that big dome they put over Hogwarts. Nothing can enter. Being buried
I feel
scares me.
dirty.
Yeah. No, you won't. They'll check before you go down. By the way,
You know, they
thank
used
you
to have
so much.
bells back in the day
Oh,
before like
yeah.
modern medicine. They used to have these little bells that they would attach in the grave so that if you woke up buried alive, you could ring the bell and they'd come unbury you.
And thank you, Carissa, for becoming a member. And Zachariah says, I hear in Denmark, if you put your finger in a dike, you become a national hero. That's in Dutchland. Because we don't, well, we do have dikes, but not as many as in the Dutchlands.
So
Blame
we've gathered
Kawhi.
here today for the defense closings of the Karen Reed trial.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what we're here for. Sorry. By the way, just before we get to it, I have a personal thing. I'll go full screen. I'm so sorry, Kathy and Plevin. I don't know what I did to you to block me. Kathy, I just asked you, aren't you supposed to be a lawyer when you said that there was a reason Aiden pled the fifth? And Plevin, why are you following my twat when you blocked me? Is it because I'm the only guy who ever read your book, so please come on now. Be good to me. Let me at least give me the opportunity that I don't have to screenshot your stupidity to say you're an idiot. Members Baker, love you and your community. Thank you, Christopher, for months.
Nice.
Nice. I'm so, yeah. It's
I
Friday,
like-
y'all.
Look
It
at
is
that
Friday.
angry mustache. I mean, he's like, I am angry.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah.
At least
at-
we can't see his junk this time. Thank you, Yannetti, for taking one for
So-
the team and blocking his juncular region.
Aaron was
Look
there
at-
on
look at
closing,
Jen.
though, huh?
What? Sorry?
Aaron, that's Aaron O'Keefe, right? Sitting right next to him.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
Yeah,
But I was more looking at Jen, the ghoul from.
Yeah. Who is the woman in the kind of fluttery shirt? Is she
This
fairly
one.
prominent? Yes.
I can't remember who she is. Chad will
don't recall.
remember. This is Brian Albert.
Yeah.
I remembered Skeletor and Brian and Angry Mustache. And you're a jerk for semi cheating on your wife or whatever. You're such a jerk.
If I had to guess, I would say that that's just kind of what they do in Canton. If I had to guess.
It's
Yeah.
a Sullivan sister.
Is
Oh.
it one of the Sullivan sisters?
It must be the older.
Yeah, the one that didn't make out with John.
Yeah, the one he was godfather of her kids or something.
Yeah, that was the sister that her husband committed the big S, and John was there for her. What's up, Tom Gillis? How you doing, buddy?
Precious. Gollum.
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 No, it's not the Bats Bunny. The Bats Bunny has red hair.
In Massachusetts, because the Commonwealth has the burden of proof.
The one in white
Commonwealth
is
goes
Megabeth.
last. So we will hear now from Mr.
Okay.
Show Life Racing, member for 7 months. Plevin is just the type that can't take it. Well, I bet you he can. That was a gay joke.
I still
it
subscribe
was.
to the don't ask, don't tell rule.
Yeah.
Unless I
If it's-
ask and then please tell.
Unless I'm being nosy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor.
My friend is the golf pro at the McCabe's Country Club. Interesting. You
I'll
must
pray
have
for
all the
him.
insight. Yeah.
I'm gonna light a candle for him because oh my god, the asshole energy he must have to deal with. Or
See if
she.
he wants to come on and have a chat with us about it.
Yeah. If he has some, do they drink and drive in golf carts as well?
Of course they do. Everybody does. That's silly.
I mean,
you only go
that's the-
golfing to
You
drink.
have a golf cart, right?
Yeah, that's the only reason that you go golfing is to drink. Ask Tom; he'll tell you.
Look the other way. Look the other way. 4 words that sum up the Commonwealth's entire case. 4 words that sum up the hopes of those who have tried to deceive you. Conflicts of interest? Doesn't matter. Just look the other way. Magic hairs, magic glass. Look the other way. Late night calls and Google searches, falsified affidavits, inverted videos, and butt dials galore. Just look the other way. That's what they want. That's what they're counting on, but the uncontrovertible fact is you have been lied to in this courtroom. And your job is to make sure you don't ever, ever look the other way. Your singular duty is to stare down.
I agree. That facial hair looks way too much like when I tried to grow my first facial hair when I was kind of getting. I didn't grow a beard till I was in my 20s because I don't know why I'm weirdly unhairy. I'm a wizard, Harry.
I can vouch. Baker has very little body hair. Very little. Zach says, sorry, I got countries mixed up. In Denmark, if you put your finger in a baker, it smells like goats for a while. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate having to read that.
Okay, I did have a
question.
question. So current Jackson does have a beard, but he also his face looked a little swollen. Now,
It's because of the beard.
okay, I was just making sure he didn't. It looked like he almost had like sinus infection or a mumps almost.
Nah, I don't think so. The problem with his beard is that he doesn't trim the neck, so it comes
Ye-
down too low and it looks funny.
Yeah,
He
it
needs to
doesn't have like a
trim it up
line.
about- You need
Yeah,
to
you-
trim it up a little above his Adam's apple.
Yeah, I do like that. Thank you, Valhalla. I was trying to
got
explain to
you.
Mr. Mo why I didn't like it, like just connecting to chest hair.
No, you got to trim it up.
No, you'll look unkempt if you let it grow down your neck.
Especially
Even
if it's
Valhalla,
short.
who has the big long beard, will. Well, most
Yeah.
people trim it up.
Good to know.
underneath.
I'm just growing out my goatee right now. I just have
That a
that
girl.
one chin hair, but
That a
I'm
girl.
hoping full Manchu, you know.
Hey, if you pray for it, it'll come because we have a
I'm not
girl at the
praying.
gym.
I'm manifesting into the universe.
I'm
a
just saying we have a girl in
Sagittarius.
the gym. She has a bigger mustache than I do.
Well, testosterone helps. I
Well,
think.
so did my grandma, but you know.
Yeah, it's a choice, and
It's a
I
choice.
like it. I'm
Not
just
for
saying,
everybody, but Baker likes it.
If you can, if you can, it's kind of like men wearing pink. You need to be man enough. It takes a certain woman to do the Fu Manchu, but hey,
It does.
but she
You know-
got a slight tan, and it's very very dark. So it's not that one where you're thinking, does she have a little bit of a mustache? No,
It's pretty obvious.
she has a full on Fu Manchu.
You know
looks
what?
like-
I have never thanked the Lord that I can't even go out in sunlight, that I have to, darken up my eyebrows for you to even see them. But thank you, Jesus, for being the palest among us.
Chad is thinking, what the heck?
down the evidence and do it unflinchingly and do it unwaveringly. You see, you're the only thing standing between Kieran Reed and the tyranny of injustice. It's a job you didn't ask for, probably a job you didn't want, but it's the greatest responsibility we have as citizens here in America, lest the government stop answering to us and we start answering to the government. And woe betide any one of us who might find ourselves in the crosshairs of a Michael Proctor. Preparing for today, I was reminded of a quote. It's a quote about the truth, and I want to share it with you. It is of great importance to set a resolution never to tell an untruth. There is no vice so mean, so pitiful, so contemptible, and those who permit themselves to tell a lie once find it much easier to do it a second time and a third. This falsehood of the tongue leads to that of the heart, and in time, it depraves all its good dispositions. What does that mean? It means that it's been observed that to tell an untruth, to exaggerate, to make a false claim, it's a cancer. One lie begets another, and it's a malignancy that grows over time. And that, folks, is
Which guys can reach brother? You can't see him in this photo. I don't think so. No.
So are the two in matching waistcoats, are they a couple? The very tan guy on the defense side, and then the woman who's also in the cream and black?
I don't know who they. Again, I'm not good with names, and these people who are. This is the Can Read group. I kind of know her parents, and I know the supporters. I don't know who this lady is.
Well, because I got confused. I got them backwards. I thought that the defense was on that side, and that because I forgot how the court was set up, because usually by the defense table are the defense people. I forgot that it was set up in an L. So I was like,
It's
wait.
a weird shaped courtroom. It's really small.
Yeah. And it's weird that the state side is allowed to just sit and stare down a defendant. It's a really bad optic. They should have switched it, in my opinion. I forgot that John's father isn't there.
Yeah, he stopped coming to court. He stopped.
I hope they're doing okay, his parents. I mean, I know that there's a lot of like sides to this, but well, it's Good Friday. Look, I cannot get struck by lightning. I'm wearing my Crocs. I am staying indoors. There are supposed to be lightning storms, okay? I make fun of Final Form Jesus too much to show my, boobsicles on Good Friday.
Boobsicles.
That's how a cover-up is born. That's how a Massachusetts state trooper says in whispered tones to his friends when he thought no one was looking or listening, how he would make a case, how he would make it cut and dry, no matter the truth, how he would make sure to put, quote, serious charges on the girl. In other words, pin it on the girl. You may ask yourself, how does this happen? How could this happen? It's 2024. Surely people aren't going to come to this courtroom, this hall of justice, and lie to us, just give us false information. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't try to cover up the truth. The Alberts, the McCabe's, Higgins, Lank, Michael Proctor, Yuri Buchanan, Brian Tully. You don't have to wonder if they would lie to support their narrative. You need only wonder how many times they did lie. Over and over and over, they and others were caught deceiving you. Big things, small things, it didn't really matter. They feared nothing. They'll look you in the eye and deny phone calls. They'll deny secret meetings. They'll claim that calls are butt dials and butt dials are answered. They'll show you a video and tell you left is right and right is left. They'll magically turn 3 pieces of plastic into 5 right before your eyes. And even when they're caught with their own lies, they won't blink, they don't sweat. They'll just look you in the eye and demand, pay no attention. You folks look the other way. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a cover-up in this case, plain and simple. You'll surely say to yourself, I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe that can happen in our community. But sadly, over the past 8 weeks, you've seen it right before your eyes. So how does a cover-up happen? How could that happen? Well, let's count the ways, shall we? Handpick your investigator. Make sure it's someone we know, someone on our side. Keep him close. Offer him help. Offer him a gift.
Hey, Baker,
have secret friends and family meetings.
So I know what the closing argument here is, and we're going to focus a lot on the third party. I do hope, as an outside objective person, that they focus more on the really crappy investigation. It's fun for us to kind of like conspiratize and put all this stuff together, but I'm hoping that they really streamline it, because I think all of these extra characters, all of these things, possibly, was just more stuff for the jury to focus on instead of the real meat and potatoes of this investigation was FUBAR in the beginning.
And it didn't work. We know this from interviews with the juror. There's too many red strings you have to tie between too many people. I would have led with probably, I think the look the other way is a good opening, but all of the McAlberts did what doesn't matter. He could have done it way faster because people are saying, well, he only had an hour. He knew he had an hour. His
Yeah.
problem, his mistake.
Now, they do have the former juror working with them this time, so maybe she's going to help them tailor their strategy to be much more.
She wasn't in the room. She hasn't been part of deliberation.
I thought she was the woman on the little, where the little guy is standing right there.
Deliberation, so she doesn't know, because the jury is not allowed to talk to each other until deliberation. She was the last one kicked off.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that was my misunderstanding.
I saw, I can't remember who posted it. I saw on Twitter today, like a mock opening statement, and it was pretty awesome. It was basically, I can't remember who posted it, but it was basically something along the lines of, in order for you to believe Karen Reed is guilty, you have to believe that, and went on this just giant rant of all the things that were wrong with this case. You have to believe that the cell phone information is irrelevant in just this case. You have to believe that the GPS locating is irrelevant in just this case. You have to believe that this. It was beautiful. I couldn't find it.
Well, and then also point out, the state brought in 4 experts. Do you understand this cell phone information anymore?
Hell no.
No.
But that's a big problem, because the defense brought in cell phone information.
Yeah.
And unless they have an expert.
This is why I say that cell phone information, chuck it into the sun. It's absolutely ridiculous. Did 227 happen? Doesn't matter. The only thing that matters in this case is the closing statement should have been, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, every single medical professional who testified in this case stated this has nothing to do with an impact by a car. There's no physical evidence that John O'Keefe was hit by a car. Look what the state wanted to talk about. Who Googled what? Who played It's Raining Men? What, if any, snow was at the scene? This case is simple. The state made 6 weeks. They made a 6-week case about nothing, trying to prove that Karen Reed was angry and drove into John O'Keefe. What's the only thing they couldn't do? Use science or facts to prove it. It doesn't matter who else did it. The only thing you have to go back and decide is Karen Reed couldn't have caused the death of John O'Keefe, because John O'Keefe was not hit by a vehicle. Don't go into the third party. Talk about how shitty the investigation. Bring that up. Bring up that we know we will never, ever solve this crime until someone talks, because this investigation was flawed from the start. They pinned it on a girl and they stuck it to the girl. The only problem, there's no evidence presented in this case that shows John O'Keefe was struck by that Lexus. Get away from all that third-party crap. The jury didn't buy it. It's fun for us to talk about. Did Colin do it? Did Bride do it? Do the Brides have a sexual relationship since they are bumping chest? All of that is just fun and games for us internet nerds. The only thing this case is about was John O'Keefe hit by Karen Reed's Lexus going 24.3 miles per hour in reverse. The rest of it absolutely doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if they have an hour closing or 10-hour closing. The only thing the jury needs to know is someone killed John O'Keefe. It wasn't Karen, and we will never find out because the police did a shitty job. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll sit down now.
That a boy, Baker. That a boy.
Yes. Keep it short and simple. If you can have a demonstrative, point out every failing in the case, but do a bullet point. Have your speech memorized to the point where you know when to pick that bullet point. Did they do the hair? No. Then did they do, reconstruction accurately? No. Did they contact outside entities to try to do a reconstruction when theirs was stupid? No. I mean, have that PowerPoint, have that be short, simple, and sweet.
Yeah, and the problem is when you go into the third party, you will have to talk for 45 minutes just to try and mention who the third party culprits could be. But it doesn't prove anything because we'll never find out. Will they be able to preview a pre-planned final jury decision paperwork papers before deliberating? I'm not sure I understand it, but are you talking about the jury instructions?
I think that
Yes.
Go ahead.
They tend to do a jury instruction conference, usually before closings. They'll send the jury home. It'll usually take hours or so because they're going to go through every clause that might be applicable or every instruction that they put in. Like some will say, you have to weigh the testimony of witnesses based on your own perception and the evidence. You can't rely on things like this, that, and the other. So they do have that because they will change wordings to take out things like victim or things like that, things that both sides find objectionable. But I don't know if they have any say as far as how the verdict form reads or the formulation of that.
She claimed it was a standard formula the last time, and it wasn't. But still, they get their input when they see it, and hopefully this time she'll do it right. They don't need to point out who actually did it, disprove the prosecution case of being hit. Plenty of reasonable. Yeah. I'd want to do the third party if I was her too. Who else will advocate for John? But you can advocate for John. It's going to be really fun when you are spending the rest of your life in a prison cell. Then you can really advocate for John. Right now, she's in survival mode. All of us wants to save the world. We want to figure out who really killed John. Karen Reed's behind needs to stay out of prison. She's a way better advocate for John if she's not in prison for life. That's the problem.
That's the problem with the Karen Reed was framed, right? By that being the very first thing the jury heard. Now they want to know who framed her, how she got framed. And if you can't prove that, then it falls on deaf ears, so to speak. And it's not their job to prove that. They shouldn't have to prove that.
Maybe part of the closing statement needs to also include burden shift. And again, I know most defense attorneys will point out that we don't have to say anything. But he needs to also say, if the state is asking you to make connections that they never proved in order to get, to make a scenario where she's guilty, then they don't have any proof. They don't have any evidence. They're asking you to believe a story, not the facts. We're asking you to believe the facts, and this woman is not guilty because they haven't proven it.
And this is, again, everyone wants this. Everyone wants to be a detective, but courtrooms are not. It's not Kojak. First of all, because you're not allowed to just say, "Hey, by the way, I found this homeless guy, and he's going to break the case," because that would be a Rule 14 and a Brady violation. You have to inform the other side about it. You can't do trial by ambush. Court is very, very different from what we wish it was. But imagine if Karen Reed is found innocent. We know Paulo Balls have a civil lawsuit against her. That's where all the fun stuff can come in, because the level of
not reasonable doubt. It has to be more. I'm
thinking about
5150 in a civil case.
That's not to look into the other people. It's easier in a civil case than discovery. That's the thing. Oh. They can do a whole heck of a lot more discovery in that. And if she's free, That could be real fun. So let's get her out of prison first, and then on to Paul Ball's civil suit. And thank you, Bernice Conklin, for becoming a member.
Nice.
Paul Balls is what Marissa calls him.
Nice.
That's good. That's good.
Marissa is fun
Balls.
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Marissa is fun all the time.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, someone has to be the mom of all of us chaos, people.
Yeah, depositions will be a big part of the civil suit. So that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Serenity.
Get your story straight. Delete your call history. Make mysterious phone calls at 2:22 a.m. Delete Google searches. Monitor police activity. Get rid of evidence. Get rid of your dog. Destroy your phones. Destroy your SIM card. For the investigator, decide on a narrative early on. Don't go to the crime scene. Don't take witnesses in for questioning. Question.
Oh, and everyone, because in 5 minutes, everyone will be asking me. Yes, I did see the new motion that Brennan has. He wants a ruling that the Commonwealth move for an order that defense counsel refrain from claiming in their opening statements that any of the victims' injury was caused by any person or animal that was inside the home of Fairview. Based on the defense request to show the abrasions to the victim's arm in opening statement, the Commonwealth notes that the court has ruled the defense is precluded from mentioning any reference to third-party culprit claims prior to establishing a viable basis supported by admission evidence, and any mention of third-party culprit claims relative to the abrasions would be improper. There's not a lot of punctuations in that one.
Oh, good night.
I can't stand Brennan. I really can't stand him. He's the opening statements are not evidence. You can get away with saying pretty much anything in the opening statements.
They're not allowed to talk about. They're not allowed. She has ruled they're not allowed to talk about third-party culprit in the opening statement. They did the same at the last trial, which is fine. But you can still show this and say this is clearly not a cop that did these marks to John O'Keefe's arm.
Just have a picture of a German Shepherd for a visual aid.
Yeah.
Well,
screensaver.
And if they're going to streamline, and I think that this group of lawyers probably did a lot of strategizing, probably talked to people, probably, had focus groups, did test jury things, and then, looked at what they were going to do with their case. So I really, really hope that they streamline.
I believe they will. Red became a Valhalla Awaits goat herder. Thank you so much. You get access to fun new emojis like Fluffy. Appreciate it. Fluffy.
And all the witnesses together. Ignore witnesses who don't fit your narrative. Allow friends and family to contact those same witnesses. Don't record interviews. Write vague and false police reports. Omit witnesses' names. Omit witnesses' interviews altogether. Don't photograph the evidence. Don't conduct any forensics. Don't document the evidence. Don't document the logs. Don't create any logs whatsoever, and don't maintain a chain of custody. Keep all the evidence in the hands of one person and then manipulate that evidence, including videos. Don't turn over videos. Invert videos. Turn 4:16 p.m. into 5:30 p.m. in affidavits. Turn 3 pieces of taillight into 5 pieces of taillight. Delete 42 minutes of surveillance footage, hide personal relationships, make this case cut and dry, and ensure the homeowner, quote, never sees any shit because he's a Boston cop. But most importantly, pick your patsy and pin it on the girl. It's not that it could happen. It's that every single one of those things I just mentioned did happen right in front of you. But this sort of injustice can't happen in a vacuum. So what about the prosecution? What about the Commonwealth? What does it look like when the government picks a narrative and then tries to form a prosecution around the narrative instead of the other way around? Looks a lot like this. If you don't have actual evidence, just throw every single thing you can against the wall to see what sticks. Drag her through the mud and make sure you attack her character.
I mean, think about it from Brennan's perspective. Defense now have two experts saying John O'Keefe was bit by a dog, and his experts' methodology is as to why John O'Keefe wasn't bit is no longer coming in. Poor little weasel. Actually, he now also has an expert who will testify that it could be dog marks, which will ruin his entire theory that it was made by the dimples on the inside of glass on the rear view. With the ruling yesterday that he's not allowed to do the dog bite impressions, I would never call that expert, because you're just lending credence to the claim it was a dog.
Yes, you are by doing that giving validity to the whole concept. If you ignore it, again, you shouldn't be worried about this. This means that you are incredibly worried. You want to have a rebuttal witness. They have tried to discredit a lot of people. Again, these are expert fields that, according to the defense, their expert has written papers, has extensive knowledge, didn't just, take an Invisalign kit up to a dog that was supposedly lost for 3 years.
And again, we're 7 minutes in, and I lost count of how many people he already mentioned. I really want them to keep it simple, stupid, because I lost. I think he could have done better by just saying the stuff about a bad investigations. And I was just replying to someone on the Twitch thread because they want to kneecap the defense by not mentioning anyone inside with the third-party culprit. They can still say, people, look at this picture. The state wants you to believe this was done by a car. This is the problem. They want you to close their eyes like they did when they did this investigation. It was just about pinning it on the girl. Because anyone who looks at that picture knows it wasn't done by a car. You don't have to say it's done by a dog. People are not stoop. Everyone's not stoop. Some people are stoop.
There are some stoops.
Look, I tell directions like this. I'm not claiming Mensa membership.
That's what you saw in this case. The Commonwealth spent much of their time and resources trying to vilify Karen Read. They desperately resorted to calling witnesses to talk about Karen Read and John O'Keefe's arguments. They even stooped so low as to call the children and put them through this ordeal. All to say that John sometimes got upset because Karen was too kind, too nice, spoiled them too much. Their arguments illustrated what anybody could imagine is a normal set of ups and downs for any couple. Even on January 28th, they talked it out, they communicated, they worked out their issues, and they had a nice, affectionate evening out with their friends. And you don't have to take my word for it. Pull the tape, as they say. Look at the videos. C.F. McCarthy, Waterfall. What are the words that every single person who testified in this case used about Karen Read and John O'Keefe that night? Getting along, no issues, good mood, happy, affectionate, even lovey-dovey. No issues, no toxicity. They were a loving couple right up until the time Karen Read dropped him off and he walked into 34 Fairview. If an argument with a loved one is a motive for murder, folks, we're all in trouble. Speaking of which, what is the evidence that John went into the house? The Commonwealth will tell you, undoubtedly, no, he never went in the house. And they'll point to certain witnesses who they say didn't see him go in. Well, the question you have to ask yourself is, can you rely on that? First, these are all people who are related to or committed to the Alberts in some way or another. That all-powerful Canton family, it's easy to say, I didn't see something, because how can that really be challenged? Some actually may not have seen John walk into the house. They were in the kitchen, as you recall, from Nicole. Third, at least one witness, Brian Higgins, forgot his narrative, at least for a second, and he admitted a man did, in fact, come into the house. And then when he was caught and asked to describe that man, he had to. It was a little bit vague. You remember what he said. He was tall with dark hair. That was a telling slip of the tongue by Brian Higgins. But what's the real evidence of the unbiased data, the data that's not connected to the Albert family? How about John's Apple Health data? It shows that at 12:21 a.m., an important time, John arrived. That's established by the monotonic time clock that you heard about in this trial that was on his phone, and that represents a huge problem for the Commonwealth. It shows that he took 80 steps and ascended or descended 3 flights of stairs at that time. And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? It matches. Walks into the house, goes directly to the basement. There's your 80 steps and your descending flights of stairs. The big problem for the Commonwealth is he wasn't outside at the car ascending and descending stairs, wasn't climbing on top of the car. So they'll tell you, wait, don't look at the Apple Health data. Look at this other thing called Waze. But Rick Green explained that if you apply the 3-minute offset that is built into that monotonic time, it aligns perfectly. They don't want you to see that. They don't want you to pay attention. They want you to look the other way. But even more importantly, at approximately 12:32 a.m., someone holding John's phone takes another 36 steps and travels 25 meters. Why is that so important? Because by 12:32 a.m., Karen Reed was gone. She had already left the location. She left at 12:30. Trooper Garino told you that Karen Reed's phone connected to John's Wi-Fi at what time? 12:36. It is undisputed in this case that it's a 6-minute drive on a good day from 34 Fairview over to One Meadows. She was gone by 12:30, and John's phone was taking 36 steps and logging 25 meters at 12:32 after she left. So don't be fooled. John walked into that house, after which Karen drove away, and the scientific data all prove it. But also, Ryan Nagel and Heather Maxson prove it. In addition to the Apple Health data, Ryan and Heather both independently testified that they passed Karen's SUV as they drove away after talking to Julie, and Karen was alone in the SUV. John was not with her. He wasn't in the car. He wasn't standing outside the car.
I wouldn't discount witnesses having to explain what they said in the first trial. A lot of impeachment or admission of maybe I really did hear see. If they can get, I hope the state is prepping their witnesses. Maybe that's why Greenan was losing his mind yesterday and wanted. I didn't want to disclose who were the witnesses were who didn't want to testify in this case, because probably someone had a guilty conscience.
Well, don't forget also, you guys, this is like the 3rd or 4th time most of these people have testified.
Yeah.
And every
The
time it's
grand
new.
jury, right? And every time they're saying something different. Every single time so far, it's adapted to the new information. You can't keep that up, right? The more times that you're in front of the on the witness stand, the more times it's going to just go to shit. And I'm here for it, y'all. I'm here for it.
Well, that, and I do wonder if the state is at all going to modify their case. It seems like they want to. Well, it seems like they want to bring in the interview. I really don't understand why her legal team let her have an interview. Again, when she's in between trials, I get the idea of having her say things, but there was a reason that Kyle Rittenhouse's legal team didn't let him go anywhere or talk to anyone, because it can be brought in.
Yeah, and that's probably because they thought it's a slam dunk, we're going to win it, and then we can make this interview and it'll be released after. But that's why you never, ever, ever trust a jury, and you don't do that. The things they're going to bring in is her saying, I had 6 drinks, because that will paint a picture. We know the OUI was the thing that the jury almost found her guilty on in the first case. So they want to hammer on that one. She was drunk, she was drunk, she was drunk, she was drunk, because it almost worked in the first case. That's why always remember your Fifth Amendment rights, even though that Plevin and Wendy Murphy and Julie Grant claims that only
and Coffin
guilty
Daffer
people and Kathy Daffy. But she's not a legal mind. She's the greatest FBI agent in history.
I can't stand that woman. I can't stand
She
it.
really does solidify my disdain of federal employees. Well, federal
She is what's
investigative.
wrong with our system. 100%.
She is exactly why people hate the feds now. She's a school marm who tone polices instead of looks at crimes. He's like,
I think she's
I
what they
know
call
things.
what the hell do they call them? A Dottie, a
HR?
Debbie? No, there's a name for it. It's basically she was a poster child. She was the Jennifer Lawrence of Hunger Games for the FBI.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She likes to have pictures taken in full tactical gear and stuff like that. Because that makes her look badass.
Yeah.
I love how often she posts those pictures, by the way. She'll repost that same stupid picture of her at like a range in tactical gear for everything. She'd be like, oh, I just got my 20-year certificate of being an EMS certified person. Look at this 30-year-old picture of me in tactical gear because I'm awesome. You know what I don't post? Pictures of me from Iraq. Shut up, Kathy. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't post my labor pictures, which is the only thing akin to any of that. But that's mostly because I'm pretty sure X would flag me.
And Connie Marie, she spoke in interviews because she's telling the truth. Don't care. Shut up.
It's not a good plan.
You can be 100% truthful. You have to go in front of 12 people who would sit there and say, well, they wouldn't charge her if she wasn't guilty. And now they're going to hear from her mouth, I had 6 drinks. We know they were struggling with the OUI part of it. It went from 6-6 to 9-3. If she admits I had 6 drinks in an interview, it'll be way easier to do. Well, we won't find her guilty of OUI manslaughter, but we'll find her guilty of maybe OUI involuntary manslaughter, and she will still have to serve time. She will then go to a civil case where they will hold that against her and say, you got convicted of OUI involuntary manslaughter. Here's you have to pay a couple of millions to the family of John O'Keefe. That's why, even though you are the most trustworthy, truthful person in the world, whatever you say can and will be used against you. The officer tells you that in the Miranda warning. It can and will be used against you. Yeah, but it's taken out of context. Doesn't matter. They can use exactly the soundbite. Then your defense can try and rehabilitate it later. Do you know who doesn't get taken out of context? People who don't speak. They will try and imply that, well, you didn't speak. Yeah, but if you don't make sound bites, they can't use sound bites. And that's why
Never talk to the police, y'all. Never talk to the police.
Or the media.
Needs to watch Tacopina's closing at the ASAP Rocky trial and use Doc Weinstein's reasonable doubt chalk in closing on YSL. Didn't watch it, Louise, but maybe it's a good one. I know Nick covered that one, but thank you. And if you want to laugh, play Caffey Daffy mock takedown of TV producer in parking garage, how to avoid being assaulted. I tried to find the link. I already played that. It's the most set up thing ever. It's kind of like when you learn self-defense in the military. Can you please? We were taught to self-defend from someone who came at you with a plastic rifle in this position. I had exactly 0 experience when I was deployed with anyone running at me with a plastic rifle in this position. So
Never once.
Normally, if we got into a close kerfuffle, I'll just kick them in the gut or punch them in the face. But her, yeah, that's fine, Kathy.
He was sitting
I want to
beside
see
the car.
her fight
He was
Steven
laying on the
Seagal.
ground beside the car. He was nowhere in sight. There's only one other place that John could have been, and that's in the house. Exactly where the Apple Health data places him. So it all fits. And Ryan was right behind her, remember, staring at her taillights, undamaged, brightly lit. That brings up another difficulty for the Commonwealth, and that's their star witness, Jennifer McCabe. You'll recall that Jennifer McCabe claimed that she was looking out the door, staring at that SUV over and over and over again from 12:29 to 12:50. She was very specific about that time frame. But we know that the SUV was gone from 34th Airview by about 12:30. Had to be in order to connect to the Wi-Fi at 12:36. So unequivocally, Jennifer McCabe was lying about watching that SUV, and it makes you wonder why. And to add to that deceit, she was also blatantly lying about the calls to John's phone. You remember that colloquy back and forth. She said that every single one of those.
No, I will never ever talk to Whitney Murphy because I have nothing to talk to her about except how much lead paint she ate when she was getting drunk. Krusty, I don't see. Krusty would just be blood sports. It would just be two people shouting at each other without any facts because she's a horrible person. Plevin, I tried to be kind to him because I read his horrible abortion of a book. Well, it was. I've seen miscarriages that look better than this book because I read 400 and some pages. Trust me, no one should ever do that. I tried to be fair. He wanted to do Bloodsport, and
it was hard to, as an objective reader, as someone who wanted to gain insight from the case, it was hard to follow his logic train. It was very scattered. And as a person who has nebulas of
Did you
thought,
read it?
I read bits of it. And again, when a paragraph changes subject, several times, it negates the idea. We all agreed on the English language and grammar. We all agreed that a paragraph has a single theme. To have 4 or 5 themes and 3 run-on sentences in one paragraph is confusing and doesn't deliver information.
yeah, and again, I tried to be fair. I tried to take it back 3 times, and he didn't want to talk about his book. I can understand why, because again, I've seen car crashes that made more sense after someone rammed a Peugeot into a 16-wheeler.
Calls to John's phone during that time was a butt dial. How are those lies connected? And why are they connected? Jennifer McCabe knows. Was she butt dialing John over and over? Or was someone looking for John's phone that went missing? Let's talk for a second about what actually happened in the time leading up to everyone going to 34 Fairview. Brian Albert, Brian Higgins show up drunk at the waterfall. They'd been drinking in the afternoon. You know about the flirtatious texts that were sent between Karen Reed and Brian. Higgins was clearly pining over Karen, but for her, the flirtation had ran its course. It was done. She was happy and committed to John. You could see that in her actions with John that night. You don't have to guess. Brian Higgins, however, you can see in his actions, he wasn't quite so satisfied and he wasn't done. His text message, well, meaning, what the hell, Karen? What about me? Seemed aggressive, seemed annoyed. He didn't like being ignored. That was pretty clear.
Isn't aggressive
So
and
he's 5 or
annoyed
6
just
whiskeys
baseline
deep
Massachusetts?
by this time, and she
Apparently.
continued to
I think
ignore
that's
him.
a safe assumption.
Then oddly, Higgins, who doesn't know John all that well, seems to want to coax John to 34 Fairview. I draw your attention to the waterfall tape if you want to take another look at it. It's at the 11:57 mark, between 11:57 and 11:58. Take a look at that tape. He's just about to leave. Higgins is just about to leave. He points over at John and he motions for him.
This is a thing I think they should show more, actually, in this case.
I don't think
because
they
didn't-
noticed it.
I didn't catch it when they. I saw the rhino dance when they were bumping chest, but I
Yeah.
didn't notice the pointing. I saw it on microdots when he cleaned it up, and that's an aggressive stance to me.
I don't think they noticed it until after it was played.
So at Dollywood, do I come up and just chest bump people, or is that a guy only thing? Like, I'm trying to
Depends
learn
how
how
much
to
cleavage
people.
you got showing.
True.
I will
Well, I
just,
was just
warn
hoping
you.
to come to Dollywood and see you all just like, bumping chests and like, going, "Arr."
I'll chest
Oh.
bump you if you want, Mo. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
I'll just say
Look,
I know Mrs. Valhalla, so make sure she doesn't see it.
Oh, no. Look, I value my safety. I may have red hair, but I don't go the Jolene route.
Jolene,
just saying that she's a bit stabby.
Jolene.
Hey, I would too. But hillbilly
on.
women understand boundaries. We're like your man, like purple signpost. She just makes you wear a purple shirt, like no trespassing.
I don't care what anybody says. Miley Cyrus's version of Jolene, best version. I don't care what anybody says.
I like the one her and Dolly did with the Panasonics.
Yeah, that was
Okay,
good.
yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, I can do Miley Cyrus with Dolly Parton. Why does she have a mullet now? Billy Ray, what did you do to your children? Jesus.
She has a mullet now?
Come on, come with me. And then at 12:20, he texts him, "You coming here?" This is a person he doesn't really know and didn't really talk to that entire night. Ask yourself,
she kinda does.
why was Higgins so insistent that John go to 34 Fairview that night? And then there's that sparring and fighting that he and Brian Albert were engaged in. Of all the things they could be doing, this is what they were doing just minutes before John O'Keefe walked into that house at 34 Fairview. We know that once John actually did walk in the door, it's about 2 steps, 4 feet or so, 2 steps for an adult male to reach that basement door.
I think Miley should get off rock and just go do country. She has a perfect voice for country. That I did way too many drugs and drank way too much whiskey voice.
She
No,
does
it's the
have a
voice.
very
I
raspy.
don't know if she did any because I think she's as pure as the driven snow. Well, she did smoke sativa, she said once, but her voice sounds like she went on tour with Willie Nelson.
She always had a rasp in her voice, so she has a Bonnie Raitt sound. If she could get that bluesy sound, I think she could really do country.
She
But
did a Joe Rogan interview, and I think she talked about it, and she was like chain smoking way too much, and it
oh well, then that too.
wow. Yeah, I think she talked about it. She's got
Well,
a voice though.
Yeah, but country is good for a voice like hers.
True.
She can sing, y'all. Miley can actually sing.
She can sing. She just
How dare you?
looks like a 30-year-old from Dynasty right now. Like Joan Crawford, early Dynasty. She's wearing shoulder pads. She's got the mullet hair all sprayed out with like the fade. Look, she looks like Joan Crawford.
She's got
Have
3
to go look.
YouTubers talking about her during a closing argument of a trial, so she's doing something right.
Hey,
It's nothing
ADHD
because
works
we
for
we
us.
we have ADHD, all of us, and should be medicated.
Remember, everybody was gathered in the kitchen. That's what Nicole Albert said. And every single witness agreed that at some point, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert left the group and went to another room. Where did they go? Where did they go together?
Basement.
Another important point.
Fight
Chloe
Club. We don't talk about
went
Fight Club.
upstairs. Brian Albert slipped in one of his in testimony that he provided. Quote, "I was watching Chloe downstairs, monitoring her because of the other people in the house. She's not good with strangers." Remember that testimony. So what happened next? We absolutely know that John was in the house.
What in the holy Joan Crawford is this hairdo?
Again, what I'm telling you, Miley, you can sing I Just Want You to Be Happy, but what the hell has gone wrong with this? And her oh my, look, she's a beautiful girl, if not that.
No, that hairdo. Yeah, I see Dynasty.
Leave Miley alone.
Hey, you know,
Brian,
as long as
Heather,
she's not
they all
dancing around with
established that.
knives.
We know that John ascended or descended stairs. We know that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert excused themselves. How long does it take to have a crossword? How long does it take to have a fight? How long would it take for Brian Higgins to say to John, "You know, your girl's been texting me"? A push, a punch, a fall, pull Chloe off his arm, and now it's done. What is that? 5 seconds? 10? Doesn't take long at all. And then the panic sets in. It wasn't intended to go that far, but what's done is done. And then some very, very odd things start happening at the Albert household. Very odd indeed. What do we know? We know through the testimony and key swipes that Brian Higgins, very oddly, goes directly to Canton Police Department. Why would he do that? After a night of drinking and partying, why go to CPD when you're drunk? What was so important there? He couldn't even get his own story straight. First, he said it was administrative work. Then he said he was moving cars. Then he said it was a factor of both. Is it both? Was it neither? Or was he there to gather intel? Ask yourself, why go? But the odd things keep piling up, and here's another. Chloe was the Albert family pet. Not only did she appear to be gone from the house that morning on January 29th, nobody saw her there. Even Jen McCabe admitted, yeah, I didn't see her there. But they actually got rid of the dog altogether. Within months of this incident, the dog was gone, out of the house, rehomed, never to be seen again. This was a dog they had had for 7 years. Also a dog who had a bite history. Why was it so important to get rid of that dog? Was there something about the dog they did not want law enforcement to find out? Recall what Dr. Russell said. She's seen up to 1,000 animal attacks. In her expert opinion, John's right arm, those injuries are from an animal, quote, most likely a large dog. And Dr. Russell's testimony, I'll remind you, was undisputed by any witness for the Commonwealth. But there are more odd and unexplained things. After a night of drinking and hanging out and partying, after being together for the entire day at 2:22 a.m., Brian Albert decides to call Brian Higgins. That call was missed, but 17 seconds later, Higgins calls Brian back.
Thank you, Jemima.
And they speak for 22 seconds. Now that call is odd and suspicious enough in and of itself, the fact that the call was made. But what's even more incriminating is that both men, both of them, lied about the calls happening. They both claim astonishingly that those calls are, you probably say it with me, they're butt dials. Amazing. But Albert and Higgins take it a step further. Not only did they claim that they were making calls as butt dials, but they were answering calls as butt dials.
Hey, Harry.
And Higgins seemed awfully defensive about that call, didn't he? Remember on cross-examination when I was asking him, can you have a conversation in 22 seconds? He unequivocally said, no, that's impossible. It's not reasonable. You can't do it. Well, let's test that out. Hey, did you make it over to Canton? Yep. Haven't been any calls. Nobody knows a thing. All right, don't talk to anybody until we talk again. Okay, fine. And by the way, come back over. I need help moving something heavy. How long did that take? 15 seconds? Maybe? But the odd behavior isn't done yet. 5 minutes after that call that we just talked about, Jennifer McCabe is on her phone at her house, Google searching how long it takes for someone to die in the cold. That was at 2:27 a.m. That timeline seems to fit, doesn't it? And it fits a very telling and a very clear story. That search became a focal point of the Commonwealth's entire case. This case was starting to look a lot more like the defense of Jennifer McCabe than anything else. That's probably because there is no innocent explanation for that Google search at 2:27 a.m. None. At the end of the day, clearing away all the confusion, the Commonwealth's experts were left with two things that are true. First, neither of their experts could absolutely rule out that Jennifer McCabe made that search at 2:27 a.m. Neither. And second, the only person to use the actual phone model, the actual data, and the actual precise operating system was Rick Green. And he was clear. That search was at or before 2:27 a.m.
Jen is the key in everything. She is pooping her pants this time around. I actually don't think she is. I think she has, as I said, she has that superiority complex. She's the Rachel McAdams of this town. For those of you who doesn't get it, it's
The
from Mean
Regina
Girls.
George.
Yeah, well, I like to go, but I never watched the movie. Just saw clips.
Oh. Well, yeah, you're not a 14-year-old girl, so, or a woman, remembering how it was to be a teenage girl.
I used to be, but
I know, but we respect your choice to be Baker now.
but I think the only person, well, not the only, but I think if I should name the people who will not change their mind and not who will fight this, even though they will have to purchase the butt off themselves, it'll be Jen McCabe and Brian Albert. Those two people have, and you can just, I was looking at Brian Albert in the background. They have this gut complex that doesn't matter. I can talk my way out of this. I'm strong enough. They can't get me. I think this is how she lived her life, just steamrolling everyone.
And I'm wondering if that's just a Canton sort of behavior. Is Plevin from Canton or the general area? Because there just seems to be this natural aggression, maybe sort of baked into the people I've seen. I don't want to label Canton as bad. I think there are good people everywhere. But there does seem to be, in this case, a lot of aggression. And I just didn't know if that was their baseline.
I live even further away than you do, so I don't know. I know, Margaret, that she most likely, but I don't think she would change her mind. You saw how combative she was when he time after time said, "You changed your testimony." Yeah, but I remember it today. This is the real thing. And that's the problem with people like her. She is the smartest person in every single room she's in. She has this unshakable faith in her own brilliance. And she will tell everyone that she's the smartest person in every room. I bet you when they did the powwow the day after, it was Brian and her who was leading the battle. I'm 100% sure those two are they are never caving until something is thrown right in their face saying you are lying. They will never cave.
Well,
even then she would say, that's not right.
Even when you were trying to talk to Plevin and just say, these are some facts that we disagree on, let's just talk about the facts. It wasn't a straight talk like, yeah, these are the facts. Let me get these facts pulled up even, and we can argue on the facts. It was, oh, you must be a moron and you just don't understand English. And I can't do a Boston accent.
That was supposed to be Boston? Awesome.
No, I can't, which is why I just went for the douche bro, like, oh man, like why are you trying to be all obfuscational and such? I was trying to talk about the facts.
Funny thing, Mike is saying they're all a bunch of insecure little mandates. Well, I don't think Jen McCabe is a mandate, but
Freud was right. Peen envy.
Well, both when you were in the bouncing world and in the being yelled at and not getting paid world of the military, do you remember guys like the Bri-Bris? The ones who would always boast and always be chest out. I'm
but
such
it's
a
the
manly
Karens
man.
that get them into fights. It's the Karen McCabe that's like, my boyfriend's gonna kick your ass.
Jen
and she's
McCabe.
Like, come on, honey. He called me a B word.
Jen.
Oh, Jen. Sorry. I just want to call. Yeah, sorry. My bad. Look, yes, last night was not a good night. Let's just.
No, but it's all of these people who will have to act, and it's like watching him sitting down there and just staring. I've seen a million of these guys, and the first sign of someone stepping up and saying, "What?" they will scramble and they'll be out of there. They don't do it. They're like hyenas. They'll never come alone for a lion, but they will come in a flock. And if they have the chance, they will try and bite because they are so insecure and think that you're only a manly man if you'll step to the plate and, hey, I'm tough. And you can just tell these two guys I met 1,000 of them well, not 1,000 because we're not that many in the Danish military, but I met so many chest puffers. And when you just met them with go out the door, come back in and try to talk to me like a person again. they'll just deflate. They'll yell at you, and if you don't jump to it, they don't know what to do because I'm big, I'm strong, I'm a decorated dude. Yeah, you're an a-hole. Get out of here.
And then it was deleted. So what else was going on at or around this same time when all this suspicious activity was happening at the Albert house and the McCabe house? 3 minutes after that search and 8 minutes after the Albert Higgins 2:22 a.m. call, Brian Loughran drives down the street in his snowplow. And he told you that there is no body laying on the lawn at 34 Fairview at 2:30 in the morning. Importantly, he didn't just simply say he didn't see a body, he wasn't paying attention. He said there was no body there. He knows the property, he knows the owners, he's grown up with these folks, he passes by all the time, not once, not twice, 3 passes. There was no body on that lawn, period, at 2:30 a.m. And what other suspicious thing happened that night? By 3:30 a.m., someone moved a Ford Edge in front of the very area that would obstruct the view of where John's body would ultimately be discovered. Who's the only person in this case that you've heard about with a Ford Edge? Brian Albert. Remember, as you're thinking about this, the basement at 34 Fairview is serviced by a bulkhead. It's a quick and convenient door to the backyard. And that backyard is serviced by a side fence. And that side fence is easily accessible to the front yard at the side of the house. Which side of the house? The side where John's body was found. And by 6 a.m., John's body was, in fact, now outside. While this flurry of suspicious activity was going on with the Alberts and the McCabes, what's happening with Karen? All she knows at this point, think about it, at approximately 2:21, she dropped off John. He walked into 34 Fairview, and that's all she knows. She knows nothing else that was going on. So what was she left to think? He goes in to check the party out, but all of a sudden he's not coming back. He's not responding. Minutes start to pass. 1 minute turns to 2, 2 turned to 10. Where is he? Why isn't he responding? She's sitting in the cold, dark, freezing outside in the car. Naturally, she's perturbed. Being perturbed turns into being peeved. Being peeved eventually turns into being pissed. By 12:30, Karen's mad. She's left 34 Fairview to make a point, but she's still texting and calling. What could she reasonably be thinking at this point? What's going through her mind? 12:33 turns into 12:34. I can't believe you do this to me. 12:34 turns into 12:35. Where is he? Why aren't you answering, John? 12:35.
I don't know how all of this went over the juror's head. I think I have an idea because the first 11 minutes was a long iteration of names, and I think he lost them there. He should have put more blood and gore in the beginning to keep them interested. Remember, they are sitting on a shitty bench. They've been sitting there for 8 weeks. They don't care. And that's why I say he made it too much third-party culprit. Way too much. That's my thing against this. And I've seen a lot of people mention in the Aiden article from yesterday. Aiden allegedly have communications that could be very interesting regarding one of the juror members. Again, how much I read it, it seems very interesting. And if you go to his website, you can read it as well. Potentially, it should make Beverly Cannoni very hot and bothered and shaking in her chair and running to her room. She won't, but it could. If it's true, it seems like there must be potential witness tampering there.
Turns to 12:36. Jesus Christ. I'm calling and you're not answering. Where are you? Pick up the phone. But there's still no answer. There's still no response. By 12:37, She's getting furious. She does not know that something has happened to John. She does not know that. So she leaves the first angry voicemail. Illustrates frustration, aggravation, all the normal responses anybody might have, you and I might have. But little did she know. The next open voicemail has Karen parking at John's garage after she gets home. You can hear her heels clicking across the garage floor. For all she knows at this point, John's just drunk, he's been partying, he's hanging out, just forgot about her, blowing her off. But John's still not responding, and as the minutes tick by, Karen becomes increasingly upset. Those are the voicemails that you heard. How could he do this? Why is he ignoring me? Why is he ignoring?
Yeah, but again, you can do it. I would have started with the technical evidence, because we saw Lally's closing yesterday, and that actually came after, because in Massachusetts the defense goes first. What he didn't want to touch were all the physical and scientific evidence. He didn't talk about it, even though he started saying they don't want to talk about the car. I would have, this time around, I will hammer the facts. I would hammer, no one says anything is consistent with John O'Keefe being hit by a car. And I would hammer that home. We know the third-party culprit didn't work. They have to learn from the first trial. And we know third party is really good for all of us who can sit and pick around in it like a prison warden in... No. They use chopsticks, I've been told. But they really need to learn from the first trial. The third party, I think, was too complicated, and they have science on their side. And science is tangible. You can measure science.
Start at the base. This entire case is based on she hit him. Nothing about the car, nothing about what ARCA people said, nothing about where the evidence landed, nothing about the video evidence that we were given. Again, show everything the state did to obfuscate this very simple case. This is a simple case. Did Karen hit John or not? Why did the state spend all their time on protecting Jen McCabe, on looking at this, on looking at that? Why didn't they focus on the facts? Because the facts don't tell their story. Their expert said math and stuff. Our experts did tests. Our experts, made a canon. I would have said that. I was like, our expert made a canon. Their expert said math and stuff.
Yep. But he did take a 140-hour online course.
Congratulations.
I did a week of Photoshop editing. Look at my thumbnails. It didn't work.
I have Canva help me.
Farrell, go to bed.
Those are the thoughts bearing down on Karen Reed as she sat in an empty house late at night by herself. Ladies and gentlemen, she did not know what had happened to John. But within the next voicemail, you quickly learn what she was thinking and what she was feeling. Now it's 5:23 a.m. She's woken up. She's realized that he hasn't come home and he hasn't responded to a single text, not a single call. And anger quickly turns to panic and abject fear. She's so distraught, she reaches out to him again. John, where the fuck are you? She says through tears and desperation. And at 6:03, the question was answered and her worst fears are realized when she finds his body laying, dying in the cold in Brian Albert's front yard. You heard her. You can feel the grief. You can feel the raw anguish. You could see it. You don't have to wonder the emotional journey that Karen traveled that night. You can see it in the video. You can hear it in the audio. From the time he left her and walked into 34 Fairview and she called, she reached out 53 times. She called him 53 times before finding his body. Think about that.
Damn.
The Commonwealth wants you to believe that she murdered this man. And then after that murder, she called him not once, not twice, 53 times. It makes no sense. What does make sense is that she emotionally moved from anger, then to panic, then to grief. So back at 5:07, when she began her search looking for John, she backed out of the garage, and what would happen next would change the entire course of this case. As she backed out of that garage, she hit John's Traverse and cracked her right rear taillight. Folks, the Commonwealth has one job to do in this courtroom. It's an immutable responsibility to provide you with the truth. That's it. And to do it through the truth. Ask yourself, did you get that truth from the Commonwealth? The Commonwealth continually tried to tell you that that video showed that the SUV came close to John's Traverse, and it took us showing you the video to unequivocally establish that Karen hit that car and cracked her taillight at 5:07. You can almost hear an audible gasp in the courtroom when we finally showed you the actual video. You can see that tire move. I'm only going to show you one series of exhibits during my entire closing, but it's that important. And it's this. Look at the condition of her taillight when she pulls out of the driveway at 5:07. That taillight, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully here. That taillight is cracked, but it's not completely damaged. And if there was any question in your mind about the level of damage to that taillight at 5:07, all doubt was extinguished when Dighton Police Officer Barrows walked into this courtroom. He's a sworn officer. He's not associated with Kenton. He's not associated with the Alberts. He's not associated with the McCabe's. He doesn't know Michael Proctor. In other words, he doesn't answer to any of these folks. He's an outsider and he's completely independent. And his words were the following, quote, "That taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked. A piece was missing, but not completely damaged." Take a look at this photograph and tell me, which one looks like Officer Barrows' description? The one on the left or the one on the right? The reconstructed light on the left is what that...
And why did they never find this piece?
Well,
Because
it's
that's
still in
most likely
someone's
what fell
pocket.
off. That was what fell off when she hit John's car in the driveway. That's most likely why they never ever found that. They found every other piece except this little one and this one.
Weird how that works.
Huh. Very
And
odd.
how did all the biggest pieces were the last to be found? That's the one that's the things you need to point out to show that this investigation was so miraculous that you just can't
Miraculous
believe it.
and confounding, because normal CSI people start with a wide view photo and then they go in by scales. Well, this one, we had a little picture like somewhere in the yard. We didn't get any reference, but they're like right here. And then we kind of just drew things on a map, but not a really detailed map.
Yuri Bukaki, his testimony was interesting. I think he messed up somewhere in his testimony. He said that he was on his way to Dedham, I think, where Karen Reed's parents were, right, to conduct an interview. But in the process of that, he said that he called the local police because he was coming to take a car, meaning that before he ever conducted the interview, before he ever had any firsthand knowledge or investigative conclusion that Karen Reed had hit him, he was already coming to take her car.
Yeah, before they saw because the reason he gave was we saw a shoe at the crime scene, and that's always what happens when you're struck by a car.
But
that's why we believed it.
Yeah, but
but that's the explanation they gave why they wanted to tow the car. They ordered a tow before they saw the car.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Which is again
sus. Sus, sir.
Yeah, and again, if you focus on these things, you have enough of a conspiracy just here. You have enough evidence that was tampered with, altered, interpolated, that you really don't need to bring in the Alberts at all, because focusing on the case is the foundation.
Yeah. Did Arca determine John could have thrown glass at the taillight? No, they concluded he couldn't have shattered the taillight in this fashion. That's why they built a cannon. And yes, I've seen BN Trouble 31 videos on the Lexus. He also now has a gelatin arm that he's going to do testing on as well.
Cool.
So
That is so
if-
awesome.
if you want to go look at someone who actually do stuff with the tail light and show it and find how it could not possibly have been lighting up in the driveway driving out, go check out BN Trouble 31 on YouTube. He has a lot of great videos about this tail light, because he
my
bought
Bob
the
Ross.
exact same tail light as this to show how it breaks. And the thing is, there's a diode up here somewhere, or here. I can't remember where it is. That'll light down and hit a diffuser, and that will make the red light shine in here. So if there's no diffuser, which there's no diffuser down here, she couldn't have had the tail light up that way in the driveway. Again, how the hell are we here?
Like, look
I am
like
just
before
stoked that they
it was
have
in
a
Trooper
true crime
Proctor's-
Mythbusters kind of thing. I'm like
With our
subbed and subbed.
You're not Danish, Brandon. You just wish you were.
possession.
Well, don't
Remember
we all?
that. That's what it looked like before Trooper Proctor had access to the SUV. And you have an independent police officer telling you so. You'll recall that after John's body was discovered, Blank, very good friend of the Alberts, walked into Brian Albert's house and had an off-the-record meeting with him. No one's ever going to know exactly what that meeting was about, what they discussed, because that interview, like everything else in this case, it wasn't recorded. It wasn't memorialized. But we do know that shortly thereafter, the Canton Police Department was recused from the matter entirely. And the case was assigned to one Michael Proctor. You have to believe that when the Alberts found that out, they thought they hit the lottery. They thought they hit the lottery. What are the chances? The department where my brother works, that would have been great to investigate this case, but that department's been recused. That's tough luck. But the guy who catches the case is Michael Proctor, a guy we go back with for decades. At such a break, they probably thought, when this is over, we need to get that dude a gift. Oh, wait a minute. They didn't think that.
They did that.
They said it out loud. But still, you've got to imagine that the Alberts had to be stressed, what with that whole thing about a dead body being on their lawn. That might get some attention. And they had to be wondering, will he set up a crime scene? Is he going to come into the house? Is he going to search the house? Is he going to send in a forensics team? Is he going to interview witnesses? Is he going to take us to the station? Will he take our phones? Will he look at our communications? Will he look at our Google searches?
Nah.
Will he look at our early morning phone calls? Is he going to look in the basement? And Michael Proctor answered every single one of those questions resoundingly. Nope. He's a Boston cop too. And with that, Michael Proctor didn't draw a thin blue line. He erected a tall blue wall. A wall that you can't scale. A wall that Karen Reed certainly couldn't get over. A wall between us and them. A place you folks are not invited. We protect our own. It's us or it's them.
Bye, Maria.
And by the way, who's she after all? Nobody. An outsider. This is going to be easy. Or so they thought. Let's look at what Michael Proctor actually did and did not do in this case. One of the consistent issues that's come up throughout this trial is how evidence always seems to be changing and evolving when in Michael Proctor's hands or somebody in his orbit. If it happens once, let's chalk it up to a mistake. Twice, it's starting to look a little bit like incompetence. If that happens every single time, it becomes intentional, which means it becomes corruption. The defense spent some time, we spent some time discussing the tow time that Michael Proctor swore to in affidavits. There was a reason that we believed it was so important, and I want to talk about that for just a quick second. because this was a concerted effort by Michael Proctor to falsify the time the car was seized so that no one would know that he actually had possession of the car before the first pieces of taillight were ever discovered at the scene.
It's Friday, Brandon, so you better
it's
get
Friday.
your big boy pants on.
Woohoo!
It's
Valhalla
Friday,
will-
buddy.
Valhalla will spill most of her beer today.
How dare you?
But he got
How
caught.
How very dare
And when
you.
he did, the best he could come up with was it was a typo. Like a dozen times, a typo. You'll remember what that testimony was. The truth is that car was in Michael Proctor's possession from about 4:12 in the afternoon. He said it was 4:16 when he finally had to tell the truth or some version of the truth.
Couldn't he have made it?
Massachusetts state troopers were there.
He could have
They're
stopped right.
mysterious figures. So
Couldn't he have just have said 4:20, just to make a meme out of it?
Yes.
Well, no,
Way to go, Baker.
Verdict.
God.
it was back started that one was turned over. Every single one of them would have had his DNA on it. On the side of that SUV through nearly didn't get there by being broken from the cocktail glass. See the Fort Fairview at the time in question where a body was
I'm
like a
such a,
dozen times. A type
I'm such a great swimmer.
possession
There you
pieces
go.
of taillight were not found until after 5:45 p.m. That is the very fact that Michael Proctor was trying to hide by those falsified affidavits, saying he didn't seize the car until 5:30. But that wasn't Michael Proctor's only manipulation of the investigation. What about Brian Loughran? You met him. Michael Proctor did his level best to not just hide evidence, but to hide human beings from you and from us. Michael Proctor was informed that the plow drivers were out that night. There would be a witness, potentially along 34 Fairview, at the exact times in question. Even Michael Trotta expressly told Michael Proctor that 34 Fairview had in fact been plowed that morning, and by whom.
Mm-hmm.
Proctor not only did not interview Brian Loughran, he never disclosed his name in a single report. He hid him. This is a witness who was literally on 34 Fairview at the time in question where a body was found on the lawn. Wouldn't you want to
He hasn't talked about. He talked about SIM cards, but I don't think he talked about the missing phones yet.
get the truth from an eyewitness? Wouldn't you want to seek that out? Not if you're Michael Proctor, a close friend of the Alberts.
No, Proctor would never ever turn on the Commonwealth. There's no reason to do it. The only thing that could make him turn on the Commonwealth would be that
Prison time.
he got some immunity, because everything he would sing about would make him criminally liable as well.
Yeah. He would need a golden parachute. He would not turn unless he was fully protected, and I'm guessing his family and anything else. Because
That's
I
the
doubt
thing. Go ahead.
I doubt that Canton seems to be interconnected in the way a lot of small towns are. So I don't know that he would do that, also because the personal cost to him is going to be incredibly great. They would probably have to move him, or he would have to move himself. I mean, he is going to be a pariah.
Well, he already doesn't have a job.
But he didn't
that's
lose
the
his,
thing.
He didn't lose his right to be a cop.
So insane. But
Indiana,
if he
here
does
comes.
talk, he's essentially admitting to covering up a murder, right? So he would spend time in prison. That's the everybody involved is basically trying to avoid a decade at least in prison, at least a decade.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. They've all got something very much to lose if they talk.
But that's the big problem, because everyone is Tyler Durden. No, I'm pretty sure I read he wasn't decertified, because people are saying he wasn't decertified. That's what I read, but it might be hey, again, it's the internet. There's a lot of things out. I know. Sorry, saying Al Gore, but some facts on the internet is not true. But the thing is,
Dang it.
right now,
Dang it, Al Gore.
he
I
has
was
a
almost
police
flattered.
car parked outside of his house. There's been a car outside of his house for months.
I don't think
And
that's for his protection.
that's a reminder every time he looks
Yeah.
out his kitchen window to say,
Yeah.
if I try to take someone down, they'll take me down. And this is the big problem. The only thing that could make him sing is if the feds want to do something and come to him and say, you spill the beans, we give you immunity, we make sure nothing happens to you. Then he will sing like a canary. Until then, nothing will happen because everyone is interconnected and will take everyone down with themselves.
If
mean,
the feds
Morrissey
could get
is-
Morrissey,
Morrissey is
kind of
on
the-
that same team, right? Who's he going to talk
Yeah.
to? He's not going to talk to Morrissey. Morrissey will squash it quicker than. Morrissey's corrupt.
And that's the problem, because where do you go? You can't go anywhere because the DA is a part of it. All of this is the Mexican standoff.
Everybody's got prison time.
it's
Everybody.
the Spider-Man meme. It's you.
Yes.
Yeah,
The DA, the police, the Albert family, they're all looking at prison time if anybody talks. All of them.
Yeah. Because then everyone had done perjury, everyone has covered up a crime, everyone has colluded to cover up a crime. That's why if he goes down, his family would lose everything.
Well, not only that, but think about all the cases that are involved. He's corrupt on this case. Every single case that's been handled by Proctor, every single case that's been handled by Morrissey and his investigative troopers, that calls into question every conviction that happened. And my guess is the state is protecting itself, because can you imagine the amount of money, the amount of time, and the black mark on their, fake, moral history?
The amount of money that the Commonwealth is spending on this Karen Reed case, just a simple hit and run, essentially, is it's unbelievable how much money they've spent.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah.
we're always talking about she's probably in the millions by now, but so is the Commonwealth, because look at all the new evidence and new testing, and you can say, well, it's just the Commonwealth, it's just police officers. Yeah, but they are not looking at who stole your grandma's car. They are not trying to figure out where is Chloe. It's such a big drain on a small community, and for what? This is the thing that makes this case so different than any other case. Why are they still trying to pin it on the girl? This is the thing I don't get.
They have to, because if they don't get a conviction here, then the case isn't closed, right?
But
and
they
if
could,
they don't
they
get
could
a
do
conviction.
I said it when they threw Proctor under the bus. Say, we think she might be, we think she's most likely the one who did it, but Proctor effed it up. We fired the guy, and we still believe she's guilty, but because of his bad investigation, we will have to close the case. But we still think that there's a high likelihood she's guilty, but sadly, because of him bungling the investigation, we have to close the case. They would have washed their hands like Pontius Pilate and be out of there. And they would still pin it on the girl, even though they never got him convicted. She would be the new Rittenhouse, where a lot of people still out there thinking, well, he crossed the state line. She would be the new Johnny Depp, which everyone is, well, not everyone, but there's a lot of people out there still claiming, well, he did that to AH. And this is why I don't get it, because at best, I can see Brennan beating them to another hung jury, or potentially a lesser included on the OUI, because we know juries like to convict people because they must be guilty of something. But you spent millions to try and get someone for an OUI, which your select man had, which your Chief Rafferty, well, she wasn't driving while drunk, she just hit a person. Paul Balls drove into another guy, and Karen had to bail him out of prison. They could have gotten out of this almost scot-free, saying, we still believe she's guilty, but we just can't do it because we didn't know how bad Proctor was. Now we found out, and we have to drop the case.
I think without a conviction, they run the risk of this getting reopened at some point. So a conviction would put it all away and it would go to bed. Who knows? The next DA looking for a
Why?
political win. Looking for a
He's
political
part
win.
of the system. No one gets to that level in public without being on their knees and being
Except for maybe the
very.
guy that's advocating for fighting corruption, right? If somebody pops up and is like, listen, this is
No one
absolutely
is going to
bonkers.
get
I will
elected
get
in
to the
this
bottom of
crazy
this.
town.
Probably
The
not.
Facebook
I'm
eyes
just saying,
never
Baker.
close.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
That's
but
the
I'm just
FBI's
saying,
never
if
close.
I had this case, I would have jumped the ship when Proctor was fired.
I would have too. I mean, if that's agreed. But I think in their minds, it's, they're never going to lose power. But the only way this can come back to bite them is if they don't get a conviction. I think that's what the Albert's mindset is.
This is the dumbest thing ever. Again, it goes back to what Baker said. If you had planned to go fisticuffs, you guys are all cops. Why leave the body in the middle of the lawn? Drop some water on the sidewalk. Put him face down on the sidewalk. It's not going to line up, but they didn't do a good investigation here. So they just said, "Oh, this is from the sidewalk or a rock."
Yeah.
Why put him near the road?
Because as we found out yesterday that I didn't notice during the first trial, he's right next to the fire hydrant. It's the perfect place for a slip and fall, and they fucked up. Karen Reed wasn't supposed to find him at 5 a.m. It is the perfect cover-up. And again, what's even better if Karen doesn't find him, that Brian Albert walks out and finds him in the morning and says, "Oh my God, everyone who's going to look into this are the same people who looked into Karen." They would have determined this was sadly a slip and fall accident where his head hit the fire hydrant. And everything would be peachy. He went in the house, they got into a scuffle, or he got too drunk or something. He walked out and they didn't see him. Everyone had left the house by the time because he was staying. Him and Higgins and Brian Albert were drinking because they are police buddies. They were telling war stories. And everyone else has left. And then he walked home and he got so drunk he puked. And then they said, "Hey, buddy, you can sleep on the couch." And he said, "Ah, fuck you, I'm going home." And he must have slipped and fallen. That story, because who would be the same people looking into that slip and fall? The exact same people who looked into this case. It would be easy. His eyes look punched, though. That's caused
Swelling.
that's the raccooning of the eyes is because of the overpressure within the skull. So you can explain it away, no problem. And remember, you couldn't get her to call it a hit and run or whatever, a murder. They are used to making the MEs testify what they want.
Oh, yeah.
They
I
would have
remember they mean mugged her.
Rookie
a
mistake.
lot.
Rookie mistake.
Yeah. But a coyote bit him. Well, it could have been anything. Remember, none of this would have been looked at if he had had a slip and fall. They would just say, well, it could have been Chloe who got out that morning and alerted him to it. And I was running out there and she was dragging in him because he was half covered in snow. Because remember, the snowfall started at 7 that morning. I came running out and I saw Chloe yanking on something, and it was my dear friend. It was John O'Keefe, and we'd been drinking the last night, and he must have hit his shoe is at the curb. He must have fallen. He was stepping on the curb and the snow covered it, and he hit his head on the fire hydrant. I miss him. He was one of my best friends in the whole world. I'm just glad that Chloe found him so Karen didn't have to live without knowing he was out there. And
Yeah. And he was close enough to the road that maybe a snowplow, I mean, again, he would have been covered in excess snow. I mean, considering there were 80 feet of it.
I think they were trying to get the snowplow involved.
yeah,
I think Lucky was going to be the fall guy if it wasn't Karen.
but he wouldn't be a fall guy. It would just be an accident.
Right.
But
it would have just been a terrible accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your story is way better. Well, Brandon, it's because you're used to covering up your habit with lot lizards.
Ooh.
I'm just saying, Brandon travels a lot. and not every time is the lot lizard. Yeah. Yeah, we called his phone numerous times. He didn't want. I said it the first time. Said this was supposed to be a slip and fall. We didn't know what happened. He got drunk. He puked, and we said, "Hey, buddy, come sleep on the couch." We loved this guy. He was the best guy ever. But then Karen got her busy body out of bed too early, and fucked everything up. I think that's yeah.
If it were up to Proctor, you literally never would have heard of or from Brian Loughran. That's a scary prospect. I want to touch briefly on the additional physical evidence, or some additional physical evidence presented by the Commonwealth in this case. You'll recall Christina Hanley. She established to a scientific certainty that the glass on the bumper, which was told to you in opening statement, was going to have something to do with this case. The glass on the bumper was going to match that cocktail glass. She told you unequivocally the glass on the bumper did not match the cocktail glass. They came from two different sources. The glass on the bumper has nothing to do with the cocktail glass. So that glass on the bumper had to get there somehow. It didn't get there by being broken from the cocktail glass. See the point? It had to get on the bumper somehow. It didn't jump up there by itself. And what's really interesting is that there was one piece on the bumper, only one, that matched something else in the case. It was a perfect match to a piece of glass that was supposedly found at the scene. Who do you think had possession of that matching glass? Michael Proctor. So the glass on the bumper had to be placed there. And the only person who had anything close to matching the pieces that had to be placed there is Michael Proctor. You do the math. That leads us to the magic hair. The Commonwealth spent a lot of time bringing in experts about mitochondrial DNA and maternal DNA lines and comparative analyses, and all that sounds really great and really sciencey, except for the fact that it just doesn't matter. Why? Because you would have to believe that that little hair, tiny, tiny little hair, barely perched on the side of that SUV survived nearly 75 miles of a raging blizzard outside.
Hey, it was brave.
That would be a magic
held
hair
on.
indeed. That magic hair means nothing.
Brave little
The
hair.
DNA means nothing. And that's because the
Hey, it's
hair
the sequel to
is
The
from
Brave
somewhere
Little
else.
Toaster.
It certainly was not from a motor vehicle incident at 34 Fairview on January 29th. That hair was placed there. The DNA on the outside of the taillight housing also
What
merits
do you
very
guys
little
think? If the
discussion.
car did not hit,
John's
you
DNA
must
would be-
quit.
Yeah, that should be the tagline.
That's good.
Mo, we're gonna put it in all our thumbnails. Well, Valhalla is so he's so famous he doesn't put anything about the case we're covering. We try to do a little, hey, Karen Reed. He's just, I'm Valhalla, bitch.
I love it. I wish I had Valhalla vibe all the time.
Yeah.
Just, I'm Mo, and I do Mo stuff.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I do Valhalla
Expected
stuff.
to be found all over that SUV, inside, outside, the exterior, the interior, everything he touched would have had his DNA on it. Here's what's actually important about that DNA. No DNA was found on the interior of that taillight. The taillight that they now claim crashed into his arm and shattered. No blood was found anywhere on that taillight or any taillight pieces. And no tissue was found
That's a
anywhere
problem.
on that taillight or
That is a
any
big problem.
taillight pieces.
That's a problem.
But we're to believe that that taillight literally exploded on John's arm at 25 miles an hour with 1,000 pounds of pressure. We talked about the evidence
Oh my Bob
doing
Ross,
very
I'm
funny
stealing
things
that.
when in Proctor's possession or the possession of somebody in his orbit. Now think about the videos that you saw. How many videos appear to be somehow manipulated or altered? Just about every single one of them. Look at the video of the Sally port. Let's take that one, for example. That grainy
Right.
one. It's missing the exact time that would show the condition of the taillight
Hey,
when it was pulled in to the Sally port.
The little hair that could.
Pretty important time, wouldn't you think? Did
No,
someone
the
not
same
want
ones.
you to see what the condition of the taillight was at that
I didn't know
exact
your
time?
dreads were that long.
But the good
You
news
always
is
have
there's a
them back.
second video. It's much clearer.
Ooh, do the thing where you,
It's from the same time frame.
I don't know if it was good or not.
Miss Valhalla.
I heard 'em all smack
Valkyrie
back
is
in my chair.
is a lucky, lucky woman. I always want to do that with my hair, thinking I look like the Little Mermaid. No, I look like I'm a hot mess and people are coming to take me on cops.
Look like I did this morning when I switched streams.
Yeah, when I try to do the bend and snap and accidentally, get Mr. Mo in the face and he has to say he ran into a counter. Like, my wife was trying to seduce me, but she kind of elbowed me in the face.
That's terrible. Terrible.
This is why I don't even attempt to twerk, because good Lord.
I think might have been what happened to MG last year at Dollywood. His wife was doing the bend and snap, but just hit his groinular area. We baked cupcakes for jurors. We're not allowed to interact with the jury, but we could do that. Put them on a little bit of while they're listening to the state asking questions. Imagine being on E listening to Brennan. I never tried it, but I think it could maybe make him bearable.
I think if you made him a Muppet, it would be funny. Like if he was a puppet on a sticks, like Jim Henson, and he was being all angry, and I could make him a puppet, I think he would be effing hilarious.
Could be.
We didn't get that one for about 2.5 years into the investigation. Literally, it was after the trial started that one was turned over. And this is important. The Commonwealth introduced you to a person by the name of Yuri Buchanan. They presented video showing what was clearly the right side of the car. They asked questions about the right side of the car. You'll recall, Mr. Lally asked Sergeant Buchanan, did you or Trooper Proctor ever go at, or near the right side of that taillight? And while he was asking the question, what appeared to be the right side of the car was looking at you. The video was still up. Buchanan paused, turned earnestly into the microphone, stared at you and said, never. We never went anywhere around that taillight.
But he's a liar.
While he was showing you the right side of the car. And that trick might have worked until we got up to cross-examine him.
Corrupt as
and only then, on the second day of his testimony, did he have to admit that the video was actually inverted. It was backward. And it was cleverly inverted at that. The timestamp had the proper orientation, which means that timestamp had to be removed, the video inverted, and the timestamp placed back on it.
They need to pound on that.
That was done intentionally. That was not a mistake. And when caught in that obvious fabrication, Buchanan doubled down and said, it's exactly the same. You remember that back and forth. It's exactly the same, he said, as if we're stupid. Is it exactly the same, or is it exactly opposite? Ladies and gentlemen, you were lied to. There is no other way to say it. It's inexcusable. It's abhorrent. But it's also a paradigm of everything that the investigators have been willing to do in this case. Lie, obfuscate, manipulate, alter. And when they're caught, they just excuse it away. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. What's the big deal? Just look the other way. And don't forget, Buchanan is Proctor's supervisor. And he was in that little group chat where Karen Reed's naked photos were being searched for. You know the saying about the apple falling from the tree. Ladies and gentlemen, we haven't even started talking about the taillight yet. You'll recall that at the very beginning of this case, you were introduced to no fewer than 5 CPD officers very early on who searched the scene. None of them, not a single one, found any taillight material at the scene. 0. Stephen Seraph, Sean Good, Stephen Mulaney, Michael Lank, Paul Gallagher, they were all there. They were all walking right around there. They were all.
M. Spire says, I'm so making a song called The Brave Little Hare. You should.
Oh my gosh, that would be awesome. I like it.
The brave little hare that could.
Yeah.
Made it 90 miles through a blizzard on the side of a truck.
Every woman has that they just want to pluck out.
Looking, they were searching with their eyes. They were searching with their hands. Some said they were searching with their feet. They even used tools, a leaf blower. Not one piece of bright red taillight material was at the scene, not a single piece, but incredibly, over the course of the next 3 weeks, according to Michael Proctor, 47 pieces of taillight material would end up being found, some of which were the size of a salad plate. The CERT team shows up later on January 29th, and according to O'Hara, the first few pieces of taillight were found about
What's up, Blair?
5:45.
How you
And
doing,
here's some
buddy?
interesting testimony that you heard. Who else was there? Who did O'Hara say was there? Well, he said his team was there. We certainly expected that, but then he said there were others. These other mysterious figures, some from Canton PD, some from the Massachusetts State Police, that he could not account for.
That's Megabeth.
Megabeth.
Ooh.
I don't know who that is, if I'm being honest. We're all Matt here became a YouTube member. Thank you so much for becoming a goat herder. You now have access to fun new emojis like Fluffy.
She's the sister of Aaron.
Oh. Okay. Why is she
And hey,
not
Will.
sitting? Why is she
Hope
not
you-
sitting by Aaron?
Because she needs a little extra room.
Ooh, giggity.
As you can see, she is not sitting on the bench. She's sitting on a stool next to it.
That explains.
Hey,
some things.
I'm a fluffster as well. That's why I fly premium economy when I go to the States the next time. We should get Declarer to come to us. He lives down by you.
Ooh.
He should
Does he?
join us. Yeah.
Totally.
Blair, we're going to Dollywood, man. Come hang out in Dollywood in June 5th. Hit me up. I'll
Or
give you
he
the
can just
details.
come hang out with us on the Wednesday
Yeah.
or the Friday.
Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4th, 5th, and 6th. We're going to be in the Knoxville, Gatlinburg area. Come hang out, man. It'll be
Yeah.
fun.
A Muppet movie of this whole thing would be epic. Yeah, I wish I could do cool things
know.
with computers.
I've been thinking about like, okay, if I had a styrofoam ball and some felt fabric, can I make a Brennan puppet? I think I might make a sock puppet, you guys. I might make a Brennan sock puppet. I'll make it a little suit with little Google eyes, and it'll just mad talk.
Did you all discuss Turtle Boys? No, we didn't discuss it. We mentioned it, and I would recommend people to go to Turtle Boys' website and read it. Give him the views because it's him breaking it down. And I think it's interesting. Again, we have to preference this and say what if and allegedly and all the YouTube things and law things. But I think people should go over and check it out on Turtle Boys' website because it seems very interesting.
His website
If true
being
and if they can prove it and blah 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 blah. But,
turtleboydailynews.com. Turtleboydailynews.com.
Maybe one of the mods can find a link to that website.
Fine. God.
No, you don't have to. We have other mods. Brandon is here.
Heavy coats, big masks, hats. Even Lieutenant O'Hara could not tell who was who, but he did note Canton police officers were there who were unaccounted for. Massachusetts state troopers were there unaccounted for. And during that search that was overseen by Trooper Tully, Proctor's supervisor,
look.
3 pieces of taillight material were found. That's super important, and I want to concentrate on that for a second. O'Hara said all 3 pieces were in an area about 12 inches square. That's an area about as big as your dinner plate. Tully, however, claimed that one red piece was found about 3 feet away from that was a shoe about 1 to 2 feet from that.
Thank you so very much, Pam McKinnon. Thanks for the recap. Love your show. Well, it's more just a rewatch to see what, if any, we would change and what we think, knowing what the jury thinks, that we kind of need them to probably focus more on. And re-listening to it now, I thought that it was way too much about the third party when we watched it. I didn't rate him as highly as many other people who think it was absolute perfection. Maybe it's because I feel that it was a little bit too convoluted, but I think it helps us knowing what we know now, that spending so much time about the third party culprit, especially because it just over the head of people, they will adjust it for this trial. I'm 100% sure.
Well, it's also a lot. If you're a jury member and you are picked because you don't have very specific knowledge of this case, you don't have an opinion. This is an incredible depth of knowledge, a casual sort of understanding of relationships that you have to not only take in, but, you know, understand all the connections, understand who was with who. It's a lot just on top of the science data, which is in depth, and then we had 4 freaking flapjack cell phone magic wizard Neo Matrix assholes who didn't explain anything. Excuse me, sorry, I don't like technology.
And yeah, if I don't hear any hashtag wall file exit file again, I am not hearing it, and I'll be pleased. It will almost make me happy that Plevin blocked me on Twitter.
That was a clear piece of plastic, and a few feet away from that was a red piece of plastic. So we have red, clear,
Lally went after the defense.
and red over the span of about, added up, probably 10 or 12 feet. Ladies and gentlemen, both of those things cannot be true. Somebody is taking liberties with the facts. Then Lieutenant Tully comes to court and makes this big grand gesture of opening all these.
No, she's not. Don't make her. You're just trying to trick her. It's Valhalla who's muted.
No, I was typing,
I
and
was
I know
muted.
sometimes the clickety clack is a little annoying, so I try to do that.
Dang it, I was muted though.
Yeah, because you were talking and I could see you.
Evidence bags. These 2 evidence bags in particular represent exactly what we're talking about. Those 3 pieces, red, clear, red. They're marked, they're sealed, they look official. They're not stop and shop bags, thank God. At least they've moved up from that. They've even got evidence tape on them. Who knew?
Nope, you can't use that excuse. Lally had just as much time as Jackson. Jackson knew he had a time limit. He chose to spend, I think, 65% of his time talking about the third-party culprit. It's a decision. It was the wrong decision. We know that from the juror. It could have worked if they had understood the conspiracy and the third-party culprit, but they didn't understand that part of it. So it was his choice and it was the wrong choice. You don't get a better jury by talking for 2 hours because you should. We've been talking for 2 hours now. Imagine if all of that had just been talking about solo cups, leaf blowers, you would have been gone. And remember, these jurors are sitting on a really, really cheap chair, maybe if they're lucky with a butt pillow, but they have to sit there and just, who's what? Why,
Yeah,
why,
and
Brian?
Well, and I'm also hoping, look at his face. His face has been incredibly aggressive. He should come in almost sympathetic to the jury. Like, I am sorry you even have to be here. This is, kind of sympathetic. Not, I understand he's being very upset about how this investigation went. But if I'm a juror, I would rather have just like, I'm sorry you guys are even here. Let me show you exactly how the state did not prove their case. And you guys can go home early because I'm going to take you step by step about how the state didn't prove their case. I'm not going to
Yeah.
bog you down with Jennifer McCabe or anything because it comes down to the state not proving its case. I'm sorry you have to sit here through my 20 minutes. I'll try to keep it short and sweet and let the state torture you with another 2 hours of bullshit. You're welcome.
Yeah, we keep it and again, just say they will now come up here and reiterate the same thing they've been saying for 6 weeks, but none of it proves that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe. Yes, I've seen parts of it. He makes some great videos, Kyle Steinbeck as well, and it sounds almost German. Steinbeck. Beck
Ooh,
is
I
a
like
really
it.
great beer from Bremen.
I like
Is it from
ciders. I
Bremen?
don't like beers.
Well, it's good beer. They, I think
It
it's
all
Bremen.
tastes like bread water.
Bread water?
It's like, it's like you liquefied bread and put it in water. I don't like it. It's Look, I just can't do beer.
Beck is shit. I like Becks. You have to have the
Nobody
ones
likes
that the
Becks.
special editions, not normal Beck. Yeah, that's not the best.
Look, I was introduced to beer with natural ice. So, like 74 cans for $3.50. So that also could be a reason.
Oh, I don't like Guinness. I don't like beer I need to drink with a spoon.
Hey, Roslyn, how you doing?
Give me a strong bow and I'm good.
I would assume Steinbeck is Dutch, but I could be wrong. Steinbeck, it's Stein, so that's stone. Beck is
Who's the
it's
who's an
a
author?
it's a YouTuber who does some really good breakdowns of it.
Is it John Steinbeck that wrote Of Mice and Men? Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Grapes of Wrath, which ended with an adult man breastfeeding. So what is your problem, Mr. Steinbeck? Could you write a
lot
happy
of
story?
A lot of Massachusetts citizens don't like AJ because of the Kevin Spacey trial.
Mm.
I didn't even. I know I've read that he was doing that, but do people in the jury room know that? Yeah, probably if it's a Massachusetts trial. But they're changing it up this time. He will do openings, and I think the indignated face will be better for opening. Doing
Yes.
the "Why are we here?" Do that
I think
speech.
if Miss Little gets just a little bit more confidence in her voice, I think she would be a perfect. Again,
Closer.
she is a stand-in for Karen. The jury is going to kind of mentally picture Karen, and she is a single woman against the entire state. And if she can break down calmly, logically, and easily for the jury where the state didn't prove their case, I think that would work well. I think that would be a soft closing that still has impact. But I'm not look, I just said I was going to make a sock puppet. So honestly, following me for life advice is kind of a bad idea.
None of the advice we give on this channel should be followed.
Ever.
What
Unless
about
you
a
can make puppets and want to talk to me, because I have ideas.
Hey, Jemima made this. She can make a whole. Jemima, get on it. We need the entire prosecution team, defense team, and Bev by Tuesday.
Jemima, can you make one of those and add horns and long floppy ears to it? Because that would be amazing if you could.
Oh, and Valhalla, I have decided you should change your goat stream to bicorned unicorns. That's what I call goats.
Be like a bicorn. It would be a bicorn.
Yeah, it's a bicorn.
That's funny.
What
We need
about a
more
snake bite
sparkles.
with breakfast?
And I'm completely sober when I have these thoughts. So superpower or detriment, you decide.
Could go either way. Snake bite's
Really
a
good.
shot of alcohol, I believe, in this situation, Baker.
Oh, I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, it's, if I remember right, it's actually, I don't remember what it is, but it is a shot that you can order.
Ooh.
What a pleasant person, Baker. Me?
There's evidence tape around here. So this must be real evidence, right? It must be real evidence in this case. And after making that big theatrical display, he
That's what I'm
opens
talking
up
about.
the bag with the red pieces and he pulls 2 pieces out. That's okay. Put the 2 red pieces together. Good so far. Then he opens up the second bag under Mr. Lowley's questioning. And you remember he hesitated just a second. Opened that bag and pulled out 1 piece of clear plastic. Then pulled out a second piece of clear plastic with no explanation as to how that could have possibly happened. And he quickly returned all 4 of those back into the bag, sealed them up, and we're done for the day. The next day, I asked about that evidence again. I asked him to open up that bag with the red pieces, and he did the same thing. Pulled out 2 red pieces of plastic. I said, you'll recall this, I said, look deeper, look closer, sir. Pull everything out of that bag. Would he have had I not suggested it? And then he pulled a 3rd piece of red plastic out of the bag. So miraculously,
Sounds
Trooper
horrible.
Tully's 3 pieces of plastic became 5 pieces of plastic
Sounds like
right
something I'd
before
try
your
once,
eyes.
like Malort.
Ladies
And
and
then
gentlemen,
regret.
the forces at play that multiplied those pieces of plastic inside those evidence bags are the same forces at play that multiplied the pieces of plastic at 34 Fairview.
Apple pie cider.
Think about that.
Ooh.
Let that sink in for a second. How easy is it? That's not sloppiness. That's evidence manipulation. That's how over the course of 3 weeks, those pieces of plastic go from 0 to 3 to 5 to 47. Ever increasing in size with every single search. Now, knowing all that, ask yourself the looming question, who had access to that taillight, the cracked taillight? Who was it? Go back and watch the Sally Port
Voldemort?
video. I'll give you the timestamp, 5:37. And see it for yourself. We know that Trooper Proctor, with binder in hand, walked by himself. Once we corrected the video from being inverted, you can see that he walked back by himself to the right rear taillight where nobody could see what he was doing. Higgins' own key swipes put him in the Sally Port that same afternoon and evening. And then the Sally Port video magically skips and Chief Berkowitz appears right next to Proctor at the back of that vehicle in the same spot, and they walk out of the Sally Port together. Where were they going? Remember O'Hara? Unidentified troopers in Canton Cops were at the search at 34 Fairview. How hard is it to drop a piece of plastic? We spent a long time talking about the compromised and altered and tampered and manipulated evidence, and now I want to switch and talk a little bit about the true facts in this case, because you did hear some true evidence and true facts. The Commonwealth presented about 67, maybe more, witnesses and expended 30 plus days of trial and 9 weeks of your life. Maybe we're in the 10th week. For what? It should be relatively simple, right? The Commonwealth claims that Karen Reed pulled up to 34 Fairview, John got out of the car, she reversed into him and hit him, and then she drove home. That's 4 facts. It's just 4 facts. That's all it is. What evidence do they actually have to prove that that SUV ever hit John? The answer is none. They don't have any. There's no evidence whatsoever that.
This is where I would have started my closing arguments.
Absolutely. Again, you
This-
don't need to touch anything else if you take out the bottom rung.
Because this is a really good argument, and I think this is what swayed them. But this comes 47 minutes into his argument. I would have started with that. But that's just me.
Karen Reed's vehicle ever struck John O'Keefe, or that Karen Reed ever wanted to strike John O'Keefe. In fact, every single piece of material evidence in this case unequivocally proves the opposite. John went into that house. That SUV was not damaged by hitting John, and John's injuries did not come from being hit by a car. That's what the evidence actually shows. The Commonwealth knows that, and they've known it for a long time, and Proctor knows that. And because of that, the Commonwealth just resorts to character assassination and talking for weeks on end about the snow. Let's talk about what the real evidence actually shows, the unassailable science. Let's talk about the truth. Concerning John's injuries first, the Commonwealth's own medical examiner, Dr. Scortibello, could not conclude that John was hit by a car. Think about that. And she would not even say that it was a homicide. She told you without any dispute in this case, quote, evidence pointing toward one manner of death is no more compelling than evidence of a competing manner of death, end quote. Her words, not mine. She went on to say it's just as likely that he was punched and fell backward. His injuries are consistent with that. In fact, in her expert opinion, his injuries are consistent with a physical altercation, as she testified, but they are not, in her words, not classical injuries from an auto pedestrian accident. That by itself is reasonable doubt. But the evidence and the truth goes far further. We introduced you to not one, but 2 thoroughly credentialed medical examiners or medical experts, Dr. Sheridan and Dr. Russell, both of whom said John's arm injury is consistent with an animal attack. Dr. Russell studied, diagnosed, and treated up to 1,000 animal wounds. She's an expert in animal wounds, and she was unequivocal. Those wounds are from an animal, likely a large dog. which means that John was attacked inside the home where Chloe was. There is no other possibility. And Dr. Sheridan, for his part, with thousands of 13,000 autopsies under his belt, decades of experience as the chief medical examiner who's triple credentialed in anatomical, forensic, and neuropathology, he told you that John's injuries are inconsistent with a motor vehicle accident or incident. They're consistent, however, with a physical altercation. In layman's terms, the science proves John was beaten. That also is reasonable doubt and should end this case. But the facts and evidence don't stop there. Two of the most highly educated and highly qualified engineers you'll ever meet, Dr. Dan Wolf and Dr. Andrew Rentschler, mechanical engineer and a biomechanist. They reviewed this case. They did testing, they did analysis, they evaluated the case.
Fun thing, if you follow the trial, you can see how Paul O'Keefe was hung.
Scientifically. They were not hired by the defense.
Not
by
since the
Commonwealth. They're
Prancer size
completely
video have I seen that
100%
much Paul.
independent of any party in this case. And they were equally available, by the way, to
I
the
broke
Commonwealth.
Baker again.
They could have called them. They explained that John's injuries were not caused by being hit by Miss Reed's SUV,
Yes.
and that the SUV
Yes.
was not damaged by coming in contact with John O'Keefe's body. That should end the inquiry right there. Both sides of the equation. From a physics, engineering, and biomechanical standpoint, they established that John O'Keefe was not struck by Karen Reed's vehicle, period. And that is yet another fact that establishes reasonable doubt and should put an end to this case. So instead of calling the ARCA experts, which they had available to them, the Commonwealth chose to introduce you to Trooper Joe Paul. You'll remember his testimony. I think I'm being kind when I say that Trooper Paul's analysis lacked credibility.
What do you mean?
Trooper
He said
Paul
math
lacked
and
the
stuff.
experience,
I felt
the education,
seen.
the training, the background, and the knowledge to not only render opinions on these issues, but to even understand the issues themselves. He makes the absurd claim that John was hit on the elbow area of his arm by a taillight. He was spun to the left in a pirouette. His arm stayed on the light long.
Yeah, they totally misunderstood what an OUI needs. It needs him to be hit by a car. But it's a thing you will see if you follow court cases. The jury wants to convict. You must be guilty because the state wouldn't charge you anyway. And when they're given as many options as they are in this case, they will say, well, she's clearly not guilty of the first big charge. But an OUI, yeah, she's drunk. Yeah, but the OUI still needs him to be hit by a car. But I don't think that they understood that. That's what I thought.
To clarify, she wasn't charged with OUI. She was charged with fleeing an accident while.
No, that's the third charge. Yeah, OUI was the second charge.
Oh.
First was second degree, then she had the OUI, and then she had fleeing the scene of a fatal accident.
Well, and you have, again, these are people picked out from the community.
I thought she didn't have an OUI charge. I thought it had, and that wouldn't make sense. If she had an OUI charge, then she wouldn't have to hit him first. Operating under the influence would have nothing to do with the accident. I think it's a two-part thing. I think
she had an OUI motor vehicle homicide.
Yeah. Okay. Vehicular homicide.
Vehicle manslaughter. Vehicle man. Homicide.
So it's not just an outright OUI. There's more to it.
No. It's combined, but that's why I'm saying that. I'm just saying the OUI part because that's the one they got stuck on.
The defense really needs to hammer that point home too. A lot of defense, a lot of the state will go through the stipulations or what you need. He really needs to put out, there is no evidence. You can stop here. Even if you think Karen was driving drunk, even if she admitted to 6 shots, they don't have that. That is included with and hit him with a car, and is important, and is why you're here, and is what they didn't prove. Oh my God, I'm a lawyer. I'm going to go represent Sarah Boone unintentionally.
But if they found her guilty of that, convicted under this section of the statute of motor vehicle homicide may face a penalty of imprisonment in state prison or house of corrections for not less than 30 and up to 2.5 years, or by a fine of no less than 300 and no more than 3,000. That would be
Not
again,
more than 30.
no more than 3,000.
No. I'm sorry. The prison sentence.
That's 2.5 years.
Okay.
The motor vehicle, the second charge, the OUI motor vehicle.
Yeah. I thought you said it weird. I thought you said not less than 30.
I thought you said it weird.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I say weird things.
Look, I can't even say YouTuber's name, and I send people to him.
But it's either a felony or misdemeanor. So, Ubeli's law, if
30
while
days,
operating a
not 30
motor
years. That makes
vehicle
more sense.
recklessly or negligently, you cause the death of another person, you can be charged with a misdemeanor offense of homicide by motor vehicle. The prosecution not required to prove that you were under the influence of alcohol or drugs, just that you were operating in a way that created a safety risk. The second way in which you can be charged and convicted under the statute is by being under the influence of alcohol and drugs while operating a motor vehicle, even if you obey all traffic laws and were not driving negligently. If you cause the unaliving of someone, the second way to be charged under paragraph B is rare, since most fatal accidents caused by an impaired driver almost always involve some form of reckless driving, and the prosecution will charge you with the felony under paragraph A of this statute, see below. If you are charged with the misdemeanor, homicide by motor vehicle, you will face a minimum mandatory jail sentence for 30 days up to the following potential. Oh, homicide by motor vehicle while under the influence of an intoxicant. That's a way different. That's 15 years in state prison, $5,000 fine, and 15-year license loss.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
And manslaughter, but that's not what she's charged with. But manslaughter is 20 years. I just looked it up.
Long enough for the shards of plastic to explode around him, scratching his arm, even though he was wearing long sleeves, then projecting him 30 feet to the left, but not before making a stop to hit his head on.
But again, she can't get the manslaughter charge to the OUI. She can get an OUI because she was operating under the influence, but she's not charged with that because there is the manslaughter part. The tail end on that needs to be there. And there's no manslaughter as if she didn't hit John O'Keefe.
Either the curb or the pavement before coming to his final resting place.
No, it would absolutely make no sense to try and get a jacket 3 years later, and you can't prove it's from this case, even if you find plastic in it.
With his unbroken phone tucked neatly under his body. It's nonsensical. It borders on laughable. Compare that testimony to Dr. Dan Wolf and Dr. Andrew Rentschler. Both PhDs in engineering, both top of their field in accident reconstruction, both published peer-review articles on the issues. Both men are highly sought after by the likes of national sports leagues and the United States Department of Defense. And these—
No, she can't get an OUI because it needs the manslaughter fix to it. But I said she could have gotten, if they didn't charge her with manslaughter, OUI. If they just charged her with driving under the influence, which would be stupid because you don't need a court case for that, that they have evidence that she most likely, and the jury believed that she had an OUI.
These men are unrivaled in accident reconstruction. What did Dr. Rentschler say before he left the stand? This was even under cross-examination. He said that the physics and the science don't lie. His words were, you can't deny the science and the physics. John wasn't hit by that car, period. The Commonwealth cannot explain John O'Keefe's injuries. They can't explain his head wound. How did he get the head wound if he landed on snow-covered grass and dirt? And by the way, before Mr. Lally gets up and says it, because I know he's going to, there is zero evidence before you, zero, that cold grass and dirt turns into ice or turns into concrete. Zero. They can't explain the injury above his right eye, that laceration. They can't explain his nose. They haven't even tried to. They can't explain the injury to his tongue, the laceration on his tongue. They cannot explain the injuries to his back, to the back of his hands, the bruises, and certainly they cannot explain the injuries to his right arm. But maybe most importantly, they cannot and haven't even tried to explain the lack of injuries on John's body from the neck down. Nothing. He was pristine. Not a bump, not a bruise, not a fracture, not a broken bone. Nothing to suggest that he was hit by a 7,000-pound SUV going 25 miles per hour. And what of that right arm? According to the Commonwealth's best and brightest, Trooper Paul, John absorbed the entirety of the collision, a whole collision, with that 3.5-ton SUV entirely with his right arm, launching him some 30 feet. But amazingly, the arm suffered no break, no fracture, and didn't even get a bruise. So how are those injuries properly explained? The evidence is simple. John got into an altercation. He was punched. He tried to defend himself by putting his hands up. He may have even scratched his own nose by putting his hands in front of his face to defend himself. His hands were bruised and covering up.
5 minutes, Mr. Jackson.
As he continued,
I hate that.
he got hit, punch went through, and he fell to the ground, fracturing his skull. At some point during that altercation, the dog got a hold of him, and the dog was pulled away. Every single injury is answered. Every single injury is explained by that. Ladies and gentlemen, given what we know about the facts and the physical evidence in this case, the actual truth in this case, how did this happen? How did we end up here? We ended up here because of relationships, insider trading, playing the who you know game, and building a tall blue wall, which takes decades and generations. But the real question is it going to continue? Will this festering malignancy that allows a lead detective and his supervisor to gloat and sneer while looking over naked pictures or looking for naked pictures of the woman that they've targeted, will that continue? And the answer should be, not if you have anything to say about it. Michael Proctor is the lead investigator in this case, and much as the Commonwealth might try, they cannot distance themselves from the stench of him on this case and this investigation. Those secret group chats illustrate the quality and character of his investigation. Remind yourself how an, quote, unbiased and an objective investigator, someone who's supposed to be looking for facts. Ask yourself, how did he approach his job? Late at night, sitting there in his office, deviously looking for naked pictures of Karen Reed and talking about her like she's a piece of meat, talking about her bodily functions, her medical conditions, calling her vile names. I don't even have it in me to repeat what he said about her. He reduced her to an object, and he went further by insulting her. He went further than insulting her, and he dehumanized her. And when he was done betraying that very humanity, he wished for her to commit suicide. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you frame someone. That's how you dehumanize someone so viciously that you can just pin it on the girl and cover for the homeowner because he's a Boston cop. That's how you rip a person's life apart and sleep like a baby while doing it. And then further that by saying, I hope she kills herself.
I don't think so.
Not in a criminal case. Potentially, they could be in for the civil case, maybe?
Potentially, if she's found guilty of the criminal case, I think.
Ladies,
What
But
the hell
otherwise,
did you
probably
do with
not.
your microphone?
Nothing. Is it
You
bad?
It's
You just got louder.
way louder and way more roomy.
Did you touch a button?
I don't think so.
Did your boobs get it? Because mine do that. They mute me all the time.
Maybe
That's
I
why
hit the volume.
I made it more high. So
I wish I remember what all these damn things on the other side meant.
I had to look it up really, really.
Okay, there's no way I touched that. I might have hit the volume though.
Oh, hell no. No one besmirches our baker. That's it.
I don't
Where's
block.
Patrick Swayze?
I'll stand firmly on my stance against blocking. I am dyslexic. I couldn't block worth a damn.
Who doesn't give two F's about you?
The weird chick from Court TV.
Oh.
And then I said, I don't block. Stop lying. And she cares enough to block me, so you cry. These men makes me laugh. They think they're all big and bad for tweeting. I'm dyslexic, but that's wrong, right?
That is wrong.
They are.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
It would be
THEY
they-
apostrophe RE.
Yeah, there. So way to go, ma'am. Very
for
good.
tweeting most ridiculous and moronic statements and questions to Julie Grant. Meantime, she's more intelligent and accomplished than they will ever dream of being. They must be little men like this big, sad. Is that a
Well,
reference?
at least you're both little and fat. So that's a win, I think. I'm not sure how
I
that
think
exists.
they're talking about my peen, and I will say it was cold that day those pictures was taken. It's at least half an inch longer.
I was in the pool. I was
It's
Yeah.
a
in the
grower, not a
pool.
shower.
I don't know why people have to. I know it looks small, but it has to do with shadows and stuff like that. It's kind of like when Krusty claimed that just because she had pixelation all around her jawline, she didn't use filters. She just used chemical exfoliants for what you women do to your face.
Exfoliants.
Well, isn't she the one that has
Look who
a lot
knew
of
that.
children
Dang right.
stuff? And she's the one with the muffin top, isn't she? With like the Daisy Dukes that fit in high
She's the
school.
one with the hunchback. She's a part of the camel toe crew, but she's not the one where the camel toe kind of fits in the Daisy Dukes. She's the one who kind of looks like Sasquatch. But she had a picture where she clearly didn't use filters, even though she got the wonky eyebrows that's two different colors, and she had pixelation around her jawline. But it was just because she used chemical exfoliation.
It's not how that works.
God bless women that know girly stuff. That's why I have wigs. I can barely do my hair. That's why I do that.
She's the Hamburglar.
Not Grimace.
And for those who want proof of my special OnlyFans here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I began the discussion this afternoon or this morning with a quote about the truth, and I did that because that's what this case is about, top to bottom, tip to tail. It's about the truth, not hiding it or concealing it, but exposing the truth. The truth is immutable. It's not a feeling, it's not a whim. It's unflinching, it's unchanging, and it's everlasting. That's why the law is steady. That's why it's not captive to the whims of people drunk with power who think they're above the law, who think they're above scrutiny. That's why you stand as the guardian of justice and the protector of justice. The law demands the very integrity that Trooper Proctor and his investigation lacks, and it requires that you cannot convict Karen Reed unless the Commonwealth has met its incredibly high burden to prove every element beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. And a moral certainty is defined as the highest degree of certainty possible in matters related to human affairs. It's the highest degree possible in your life. That's the level of certainty. And I'll leave you with this. You have the most powerful tool known to American jurisprudence because you have your vote. No one can take that away from you, not me, not the Commonwealth, not the court. You may not have asked to be here, but each of you have given something very special of yourselves. You've agreed to do that, which is the highest calling a citizen can answer in any way. You've agreed to give your community your best. And my question to you is, what will you do with this moment? Ignore the lies and the manipulations, the misogyny, the bias, the lack of evidence? Could you ever do that? Would you ever do that? Or will you say with your verdict, I see the truth and I will not ever look the other way? When you stare the truth down, you'll see that the Commonwealth has not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt into a moral certainty, not even close. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Reed is innocent. Do justice and find her not guilty. Thank you. That are highly relevant and highly material.
So, what's the verdict after watching it? I think his ending should have been his beginning.
Whole thing.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, he never did. He never told what's reasonable doubt.
I think that when we were watching it the first time, I think we were so in the case that we liked that he focused on, the McAlberts and, all the people. We liked that part because I was kind of going back and we were like, yeah, show this bit. And I think with hindsight and with,
Don't mind me. Don't mind me.
that doesn't make sense.
What? Who was that?
It's my hopefully.
Oh my god, woman. You are absolutely ridiculous with her takes.
I will need to do my due diligence, and I'll call up a lawyer and see if this is a correct legal take.
That doesn't even make sense. How does that make sense?
Okay, so let's play this forward. The judge, everyone wants Karen Reed to be found guilty. ARCA is going to put Karen Reed in prison. Therefore, it's not allowed because this is why people need to have a license to Twitter. Remember a time where we didn't hear everyone's hot takes and no one took pictures of their effing meals? Do we remember a peaceful time? Because Pepperidge Farm remembers. I'm about to go get me a Zima and go back to that time. Because I don't need to know what Cletus in Tennessee is thinking. I really don't.
First of
About
all, how
everything.
dare you talk about my neighbor Cletus? He's an amazing man. Second of all,
Yeah, but I don't need to see his fist.
I think that we need to keep taking pictures of our food and keep being able to let everybody make whatever broad statements they feel like making on the internet, because then we get to see these people in their natural state and we know when to avoid them. Side note, isn't that the mother of Doink? Or am I wrong?
That's Doink's mother, yes.
Okay. I now understand. I now
always thought he
understand
came from a
exactly why
pod.
he is the way he is. I understand exactly how he's so off kilter, because that woman shouldn't be allowed in public. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Everyone who says, I don't think this and that should be allowed to speak, they should be allowed to speak more.
Yes.
Because
yes, they
nothing shows you how wrong stupid is than stupid talking.
Make public shame great
Those
again.
of us that
I
are
stand
smart
by it.
have to deal with a lot of stupid. I often wonder if you're really, really stupid. Do you just go around with this confidence? Because I've noticed the more intelligent people question themselves all the time. Like,
I wouldn't
what
say I'm
must-
all that confident.
Yeah, because you're smart.
Wendy is Doink Grant Smith Ellis's mother. She is known for her very controversial take on the Duke case that never in the history of anything, and this is me paraphrasing and not true at all, has anyone alleged a grape without it being true. And she also, when the alleged grape victim of the Duke lacrosse team said that she made it up because she's in prison now. And she went out, I think, 6 months ago saying, yeah, I just made it up. She went on and again, I'm paraphrasing, this is my words, not hers, claimed that, well, rich white guys can pay you a lot of silence. She is a constitutional and human rights lawyer, I think she claims on her twit, who claims that pleading the fifth means you're guilty. Again, my words, not hers. I'm paraphrasing.
I never thought that I would see so many legal characters explaining that Aiden's taking the fifth is a sure sign of guilt. Like I never in a million years would have expected legal minds, people with law degrees, people in law enforcement to be like, oh, that means he's guilty. That's not what it means. In fact, it specifically states that you can't infer that.
No. I actually read, I can't remember if it was my good friend Julie Grant or my great friend Wendy Murphy or Doink the Clown saying that you must infer guilt by pleading the fifth.
It's insane. It's absolutely crazy. We're living in an alternate timeline. I'm convinced.
It's
This isn't
very
CERN did
much
it. CERN did it.
it's very much we are watching the same movie, but we're watching two different movies. Because again, what I found very interesting about Plevin is that he has almost built a fortress around his ideas, and it's almost painful. You can tell the cognitive dissonance that is just engaged with rage because it hurts that he has his ideas made up. He doesn't want to hear other things. Am I too loud? Or
No, it was just there was a
Something
squirk.
happened. Yeah, something
Oh.
happened.
sorry, I have no
I
idea.
don't know what it
I don't
was.
control nothing around here.
It was very abrupt.
Mr. Mo, fix her microphone.
There we go.
I don't think it was it was just a
It was
a squirk.
Like a squelch. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
It wasn't
It
wasn't
wasn't
worried
your
about it, no.
microphone going out, it was just like an overload. Now you ruined it.
now we can't hear you at all.
Well, I had to unplug it and replug it. That is the
Fixes everything.
technicality.
Always does. It's the first thing
Oh.
they tell you to do when you call India for tech support. Unplug it.
I
plug it
usually
back in.
tell them, like, Steve, I know that's not your real name. Can you please take over my computer by the magic that you have and just move my clicker wherever it needs to go? Because I know F all about computers. And he's usually like, I don't understand English that fast. And what is wrong with this lady? Let's just get her off my queue.
And back to it. Yeah, I think he didn't explain reasonable doubt, and I think he should have spent all the time he talked about third-party culprit, talking about the physical and scientific evidence, and then spent 5 minutes talking about the potential other people. That's my take, my take. But it's going to be interesting to see what route we're going to, because Tuesday we will figure out where Brennan is going to take this, and he's the guy who kind of sets the direction of the court, and now he wants them to not be able to say someone make those marks to his arms, but they don't need to say it. They can just say anyone can see this isn't from a car accident, and it'll be way better than say, well, these marks, no one can explain them, but doesn't it look like a dog, and there was a dog at the house? And you don't need to go into all of that. I think keep it simple, stupid is what you need to
Yes.
learn from the first case.
And again, that resentment from the jurors, if the state drags this out, if the state continues to talk about snow and Miss Little is able to connect with, look at the time the state wasted on things that don't matter. Because at the bottom of this, they failed to prove this. I mean, if you are able to connect with that frustration that the jury is probably feeling, I think that would be powerful. Now, I hope that they are paying attention to the jury. I hope they have someone who's maybe, catching where jurors are irritated or fidgeting, because I would make notes of that. But
Yeah,
I'm a weird people watcher, so who knows?
maybe
I think
that's
it,
what.
though. I think that as long as they can hammer the fact that he didn't get hit by a car, the rest of it kind of follows suit, right?
Yeah, because you need the car strike in every single of the charges.
Has to
Yeah.
happen.
And go in and say even the state's own witnesses can't determine he was ever struck by a car. The only guy who said it is Trooper Paul, Mr. Science and stuff.
Yeah, it is insane what they're expecting the jury to believe. You have to make so many connections that don't make sense. You have to make choices based on no sort of evidence. It's incredibly insane to try to do that. And again, people want justice for John. The state is playing on the fact that it is very, very gross how the state is using this. They keep, basically swinging John's body around, as a shield and a sword, saying, if you think that Karen Reed is not guilty, you hate John. You don't want to find justice.
Right.
And two things can be true at the same time. We can want to find justice and make sure that the right person gets justice. If the state can prove that Karen did this, we would all be persuaded. If they had the evidence, I watched us watch, trials that are much more, we watched the Jose Ibarra trial, and that was terribly difficult. I never in my mind thought that Karen Reed was going to be the case that was like Please tell me
Please
Wendy
don't
has more
talk
hot
about
takes.
anyone looking for clicks and views. The only people looking for clicks or views are those grifting to suck as much money from free Karen Reed as possible before that train hits the wall. If Julie Grant or anyone else wanted clicks and views, all they would have to say is Karen Reed is innocent. But you know that. Please. Hey, Maya, go and look at Court TV's headlines. It's fucking clickbait, all of it. How do you think Court TV makes money? By not having viewers? I hate stupid people, and it's a Friday, and I'm going to get a beer, and Valhalla, you're going to do the same. Mo is going to do an interpretive dance of her getting
way
a beer.
ahead of you, buddy.
Woo!
Way ahead of you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my show now. Welcome to the Valhalla show, the Valhalla experience. Hey, if you guys don't know who I am, I'm going to take this opportunity to drift. Why not? If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Valhalla Waits. I am a small goat farmer in East Tennessee. We do a lot of, I have fun on YouTube is what I do. I've got a interview show where we build Lego. It's pretty awesome. Sounds a little weird, but it's pretty awesome. You bring somebody on, you build Lego, and me and my co-host Dave just shoot questions at them. And it's actually a lot of fun, a lot more fun than people think or sounds, I guess. It's like Hot Ones, but without the spicy pain.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah. When I get my room fixed up, I need to get with you guys because I have a dingus kit, like the tuxedo cat. So I need you guys to listen and be my emotional support people as I'm cursing and like, what the hell goes with what part? And I am drinking Oliver Key Lime Pie wine. My mom gave me the bottle because she has a wine group.
Well, you know the rules. It's Friday.
Let's go. You ready?
He's chickened out. By the way, new merch line from Mo.
I need to tweak it a bit.
Tilt it forward so the light forward.
I don't know directions.
You can get this in Mo's merch store.
Do I need to click it? Like that annoys the shit out of me. Who does that?
I didn't like that.
Why? Why do you do that? Women, explain yourselves.
Don't they also shake the overpriced sugar water that they call iced coffee? Nothing sounds better than this.
Or the ice. Yeah.
Nothing sounds better than the heart attack you're going to get by 40 because everything you're drinking in that cup of coffee is pure refined cane sugar. No.
That's what I live on. What are you talking about?
Cane sugar's good.
Hey, Mo, what's this name?
No. I refuse.
Ex-trooper disgraced Michael Proctor.
And I felt so embarrassed. I was like, I didn't mean to completely miss. Or I guess someone sent him a clip and he's like, this is hilarious. And I was like, I'm really sorry. I failed Hooked on Phonics because I don't ever want to miss anyone's name. But it doesn't make sense. My brain is like hieroglyphics. Like we'll just say whatever.
I liked it. I appreciated it.
Ex-trooper disgraced Michael Proctor refused justice for John O'Keefe. He denied the public and grieving family any and all justice. Couldn't be said
Facts.
any better. And to that, Friday, go if you do have a beer.
Salute.
That's way better when it's not straight out of the fridge.
Yeah, that's why my Friday beers is on a shelf.
I've had it out for about 40 minutes. That's a way better way to chug a beer.
Wait a minute. Warm bread water?
Not warm, but I'm not drinking warm, but like not freezing cold. Right?
Freezing cold will hurt your throat when you have to chug it. It's
It's Good Friday. I can't take that one.
Do you think Racket is coming back for Karen Reed? I saw him post the return date was same day as opening. His return date is allegedly today. He just got his sentencing. As I read it, it's a 30-day in prison, but it's deferred if he keeps up with his 5-year probation.
Not prison, jail.
Jail. Yeah, it's the same to me. All I know, it's a lot about man love and bird lines. But if he would return, I don't know if he want to go into law streaming. He did a public Twitter that he would be back on the 18th with this today. I don't know if he's going to go back to law streaming. It would be an amazing case. Valhalla and I have actually discussed that it could be interesting to talk to him about it. I know there's a lot of people out there who's going to be making videos today and saying he's going to jail, kicking a man who's down. No.
Yeah, I mean,
but on this channel, we don't kick people who's down. So
I'm just hoping that he comes back healthy and happy and all that jazz, because he was super fun to watch. I mean, he got me through. I had just broken my ankle when the Kyle Rittenhouse trial started, and I was like stuck sitting down, and he made all those days where I was just stuck doing nothing bearable. So I hope he gets back to doing that, because he seemed like he had fun. Yeah, maybe a little too much, but you know.
Yeah, but we are on this holiest of holy days where our Lord and Savior died for Valhalla's sin. None of us are pure. No, I'm drinking a beer from Denmark called Odense. It's a really good beer.
Yingling.
I think that's from Indiana.
Yingling? Might be.
I really love this. We've been doing this for 2 years now, and the instant she sniffs a little rackets coming back, Corn Pope is deuces, fellas. Fuck you. I'm not hanging out with you.
Well, your first love is your first love. I get it.
I'm gonna ditch you for rackets when he comes back. Let's be honest. I'm out of here. Later, y'all.
Baker, I'm never leaving you.
The law pope wins. The law pope wins every time.
Again, in that picture, there are the red pieces. There are some of it still there. So it's cracked and missing. In a state of shock, that was my description.
I'll allow it.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that at her...
Do you remember it or do you not, Ms. McCabe? That's a simple question.
That morning, I don't remember specifically what I Googled, but I do know what you've put out to the social media.
How about this? So according to you, it was a butt dial that went to his phone and somehow lasted 1 second. Get cut and dry. Pretty simple. Just pin it on the girl, right? Pretty simple. Just pin it on the girl, right?
Objection.
Pretty simple. Just pin it on the girl, right?